I am in Marvel. I get Venom by teaming up with Wolverine in Deadpool. Chapter 61. Chino took Mephisto away from the underground hole and prepared to return to the castle. Along the way, Mephisto remained silent. After returning to Mephisto's castle, Chino began to summon his demons to leave. Soon, a group of demons of different shapes and hideous faces rushed over and arranged neatly in front of Chino. Young master, can we take this away? Hulk likes pets, brings them to Milan, Dara. After a period of study, Hulk can also speak normally. Hatred and Hulk were holding a 3-meter-high demon wolf in their hands, but they were like a puppy, making a whimper in fear. Yes, but you have to look at them and don't hurt people. After abhorrence and Hulk dragged the pet in their hands into the portal. Where has she been? Chino asked Barcelona. I don't know, Your Majesty, I haven't seen her since the beginning of the battle. Barcelona shook their head, their face also confused. Young master, I'm back. Zai's voice came, and she walked out of the castle quickly. Behind were a group of demons wearing gold and silver, and they were also carefully holding 2 round objects. The originally slender bodies of the 2 demons were now filled with various treasures and could be vomited out at any time. She came to Chino, who had already dressed, and a hint of disappointment flashed in her eyes. This is it on you. Chino looked surprised, looking at she, who looked like a little golden man, and 2 spherical demons behind her who were being held by a group of little golden mountains. Why doesn't he remember that there is such a fat demon in hell? Is it because the food is too good during this period? We have found this treasure house of hell. Your plan requires a lot of money, but these 2 demons are too useless and cannot take them all away. She curled her lips and said with some dissatisfaction. The space demon and the devouring demon rolled their eyes so hard that they rolled their eyes, and they complained in their hearts, not daring to say anything. This woman is even more demon than a demon. Mephisto just took a casual look and stopped paying attention. He secretly despised some ordinary treasures, such as ignorant demons. Thank you so hard, she. Chino smiled and gently touched Zai's little head. Although the treasures on them were a drop in the bucket for his plan, he would not refuse this kind of good intention. Hee, it's not hard work, master, she said with a sweet smile, his face filled with satisfaction. You guys go back first, let's talk about your reward later. Chino waved his hand and said, yes, master, Shi Ying said, then walked into the portal with a group of demons like little gold mountains with 2 balls. Slave, be honest recently. It's okay, don't run around in the world. I will summon you if there is something. Chino looked at Mephisto with an expressionless face. Yes, master. Mephisto lowered his eyebrows and did not dare to disobey at all, and his tone was extremely submissive. Chino said nothing more and turned around and stepped into the portal. Mephisto kept giving in a respectful manner until Chino's figure completely disappeared, and then slowly stood up. The humility on his face disappeared instantly, replaced by a hint of gloom and reluctance. Mephisto looked at the devastated hell, surrounded by collapsed peaks, cracked earth, and wailing demons. His eyes were burning with rage, as if they could burn everything. I have never suffered such a big loss. I thought that a contract could control me. You think it's too simple, human. Mephisto gritted his teeth, his voice full of anger and resentment. When he came to the gate of the treasure house, he pushed it open, and Mephisto was directly spit out a mouthful of blood in anger. The treasures collected for countless years have been swept away, leaving only a few of the most valuable gold mountains. Mephisto really wanted to rush out and kill the human, but he had to give up with a contract, definitely not because he couldn't beat it. Come to the corner of the treasure house, open a stone slab, and get a black magic book with chain seals. Fortunately, the book of contract is still there. Mephisto breathed a sigh of relief. This was the foundation of his previous life. Open the book. He was chanting an obscure black magic spell, and the low and evil voice echoed in this empty treasure house. All the contracts in this world are just demons and gods standing behind the scenes to achieve results. Humans, wait, I will make you pay a heavy price. As the low and evil spell continued to chant, black smoke surged around Mephisto. His power was like an invisible torrent, tracing the contract in his soul along the mysterious source. A ferocious smile appeared on his face, and a crazy murderous intent flashed in his eyes. If the opponent is weak, then kill him. If he is strong, pay a little price to let him give up this contract. Human, wait for me, have the hell that connects the world. All the demons and lords will want to kill you and rob your hell. Mephisto laughed wildly, and the laughter echoed in this hell, as if he had seen the tragic situation of Chino's death. Mephisto's power and consciousness were like a black lightning, instantly traveling through endless time and space to a desolate planet. The earth here is dry and cracked, lifeless, and there are 4 huge holes left in front of you. The air was filled with the breath of decay and death, and there was no sign of life. Mephisto looked at this environment that was even worse than hell, and couldn't help but feel certain in his heart, thinking to himself, it must be a very weak god, otherwise those gods who like to enjoy would never choose this kind of place to stay. A contemptuous sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth, and a light of greed and cruelty flashed in his eyes, as if he had seen the moment when he easily broke the constraints of contract and regained his freedom. Are you the demon of this world? You also have my contract on you. On this lifeless and dead planet, a wonderful sound suddenly sounded, like the sound of nature, but it seemed particularly abrupt in this desolation. Mephisto looked in the voice and saw a very beautiful woman standing gracefully not far away. From the perspective of the demon, it is also amazing. He sensed it carefully and found that the woman was very weak, and the aura emitted by her body was exactly the same as the aura of contract in her soul. The woman also noticed Mephisto's small movements, but just smiled slightly, and the smile was like the spring breeze blowing on her face, but it also had an elusive mystery. You are the god behind this contract, Mephisto said viciously. Yes, is there anything you have? The woman looked at Mephisto calmly. I order you to undo the contract for me, otherwise. Before Mephisto could finish his words, the storm on the planet suddenly subsided without warning. Only then did Mephisto see the whole picture of the place clearly. He was shocked to find that he was standing on an extremely huge head. Looking around, you can see the full view of the interior of this huge body. Yes, inside, this body larger than the planet was dissected. The internal organs larger than the mountain were exposed to the void. Moreover, the place where he is at this moment is not the empty edge, but the eye socket on the head. Only 4 bottomless dark holes were left, as if silently telling the great pain and torture they had suffered. Heaven, the god group. Mephisto's voice was filled with incredible and extreme fear. In this vast universe, the god group is the most powerful individual existence, and the legend has terrifying strength that can fight against the 5 gods. But now, the god group in front of me has been dissected. It was obviously just an energy body, but Mephisto still felt a chill rising from his spine and spread to his entire body in an instant. The chill seemed to freeze his soul, making him tremble uncontrollably. You know him. Lucifer came to Mephisto quietly at some point, and his voice came slowly. He is very strong, and he should have created it by someone. He has good abilities, but his personality is too bad and he refuses to use it for me, so I refine him into a puppet. As he said that, Lucifer stepped on the huge head without any concern. In an instant, the explorer, who had already died, moved and slowly knelt down in the void. This scene made Mephisto's creepy feeling instantly storm all over his body, and every hair stood upright, and cold sweat gushed out like a waterfall. His eyes widened, his throat as if he was tightly pinned by an invisible hand, and he could not make a sound. Lucifer turned his head slowly, with a strange smile on his face, and said, "What did you want to order me to do just now?" The smile seemed to come from the 9 nether abyss, revealing endless chill and evil. When Mephisto heard this, his heart suddenly sank, and fear instantly swallowed his reason completely. Run! This thought exploded in his mind. Without any hesitation, Mephisto directly chose to give up this part of his power and consciousness. In an instant, the power and consciousness disappeared like fireworks in the void, dissipating without a trace. In hell, Mephisto opened his eyes suddenly and gasped heavily, as if he had just broken out of the abyss of death. Who is that woman? What a terrifying aura, he murmured to himself with lingering fear. A voice suddenly came from behind him that made his pupils shrink. I ran quite fast. A hand gently placed on Mephisto's shoulder, just such a simple action made him unable to move in an instant. He tried to mobilize his magic power, but found that the magic power was as quiet as stagnant water. He wanted to use the authority of hell, but he had no reaction. He could not even achieve the death escape and resurrection. At this moment, Mephisto was filled with despair. Isn't it good to be a slave honestly? Kicked to the iron plate. It seemed as if I could hear Mephisto's voice. Don't worry, you are a slave to the little guy and will not play you to death, but you are a little unbearable and need to be well trained. And I'm very curious about the body structure of this universe's demon. Quote. Before he finished speaking, Mephisto's body disappeared into hell, as if it was completely swallowed by darkness. Chino didn't know all the thrilling things that happened in hell, and he had returned to the world at this moment. What appears as the living room of the manor. Pamela, I'm back. As soon as Chino finished speaking, the door suddenly opened with a creak, and a green figure rushed out directly. Dear, you're finally back. Pamela's deep cry came. Pamela. A joyful smile appeared on Chino's face and he hugged Pamela tightly. I miss you so much, my dear, you have disappeared for 10 days. Pamir buried his head in Chino's arms and said in a muffled voice, with deep thoughts and a little grievance in his voice. Sorry, it took some time to completely solve the enemy this time. Chino caressed Pamela's back, full of apology. After this battle, Chino also understood the limits of his power more clearly. Not to mention invincible, but in this world, only 5 gods can fight him. Pamela observed Chino with concern, glanced back and forth on him, and said, Are you injured? No, I beat him up. Chino replied with a smile, looking relaxed, with a look of confidence and pride. He gently pinched Pamela's hand, wanting to reassure her. Pamela was still worried, and reached out to touch Chino's face gently, as if confirming that he was really unscathed. Really, don't hide it from me. Chino grabbed her hand, put it on her lips and kissed her, saying, Dear, I'm really fine, don't worry. Damien heard the movement downstairs and ran downstairs. Godfather, you're back. Damien showed a look of surprise on his face. At this moment, with a whoosh, Venom appeared, hugging Damien and rubbing back and forth. Damien, it's so fragrant and soft. Do you miss me? Poison, Venom Mom. Damien was held tightly and felt a little suffocated. After leaving the Venom, Chino directly turned naked, and Pamela was stunned for a moment. Dear, go change your clothes quickly. Pamela reacted and said with a red face. Oh. Chino was also a little embarrassed and hurriedly ran to the bedroom. It doesn't matter in hell, but he is still a little ashamed in the world. After going to the bedroom to change his clothes, Pamela also went to prepare some food. Tasty. Chino was eating pork ribs in big sips, fighting in hell for a long time, and didn't even drink a sip of water. Now that he can eat food, he only feels delicious. Eat slowly, it's not enough, I'm cooking. Pamela smiled and said, This is the Chinese food that Pamela learned. Seeing Chino eating so happily, Pamela also got her appetite and started eating. Damien, try the chocolate. There was a large plate of various chocolates in front of Venom. Although it could eat human food, chocolate was the best for her. Thank you, Mom Venom. Damien took the chocolate and ate it as a snack. At this time, a knock came from the door. Tony, why is he here? Chino was still chewing food in her mouth, and she sensed the mark on Stark, feeling a little confused. Pamela was used to it, and waved her hand gently and controlled the plants at the door to slowly open the door. This guy comes once a day and asks you if you have come back, as if you think you are the reason for him to deal with the enemy. Pamela shrugged helplessly. Miss Pamela, is Chino back? Tony pushed open the door with Pepper and asked subconsciously. This is what he will ask every day these days, and today, he didn't have much hope. Long time no see Tony, have you eaten? Chino's voice came. Chino, you're back. Tony looked in surprise in the direction where the sound came and walked quickly to the dining table. Well, I just came back, let's have something together. Chino said with a smile. Annoyed, Mr. Chino. Pepper nodded politely and sat next to Parmilla. The two of them have become good friends these days. Okay, I rarely eat Chinese food. Tony was not polite, so he found a seat to sit down. Pamela smiled slightly and added 2 bowls and chopsticks to control the plants. As expected, Chinese food should be eaten with white rice. It tastes good, it seems that I should invent a robot for making Chinese food. Tony said while eating. I will also give me a robot that can cook when researching it, I need it very much. Chino remembered the group of chefs in hell. If it weren't for the high wages, they had already gone on strike, and the demons in hell could eat more than the other. Small question. Tony responded confidently, continuing to enjoy the delicious Chinese food. The restaurant is filled with a relaxed and pleasant atmosphere. Pepper asked quietly as he looked at the mountain of chocolates in the Venom bowl. Pamela, is this lady really okay with eating so much chocolate? It's okay, Sister Venom is not an earthling, her staple food is chocolate. Pamela explained with a smile. Alien. Pepper was startled at first, and then she thought that Mr. Chino was still the devil, and her expression gradually became calm. Venom also handed over a piece of chocolate. Try it, this chocolate tastes the best. Thanks. Pepper did not refuse her kindness and took the chocolate and put it in his mouth. Have you not had a rest lately? Venom asked concerned, noticing that Pepper looked a little haggard. Yeah, Obadiah's death, the arsenal explosion, and Tony's becoming Iron Man, there's so much explosion. Pepper said with a headache. Although he has been here every day these days, he always sits for more than half an hour or gives some gifts before leaving. It seems that I have no time to do business today, and I will be all night tomorrow. I still glared at Tony with resentment. Tony smiled embarrassedly from the side, scratched his head and said, I'm updating the iron armor during this period, and the company's affairs are all pushed to you. Thank you for your hard work, Pepper. Then I'll condition you, Venom said. Please trouble you. Pepper glanced at Tony and agreed after getting his affirmative look. Venom grabbed Pepper's hand and the black tissue quietly entered her body. After a while, Venom let go of his hand and said, okay. Pepper instantly felt his originally tired body regain his vitality. Wow, Pepper, your face, Tony suddenly exclaimed from the side, his eyes wide open. What's wrong with my face? Pepper touched his face in confusion, only to feel it was so smooth. Pamela manipulated the plant and handed over a mirror. Oh, buy it. Pepper looked at the people in the mirror and was a little disbelief. Although she had been taking care of expensive skincare products and cosmetics, her skin became a little dim as she got older. Now her skin has returned to her youthful state, without any wrinkles, fair and smooth, and radiating charming brilliance. Thank you very much, Venom. Pepper said with great emotion, tears flashing in his eyes. Small question, Venom said carelessly in Tony's tone just now. Poochie, ha ha ha. Pepper was amused, his laughter was crisp and pleasant, and the relationship between her and Venom became familiar at this moment. After dinner, the three girls took Damien to the sofa to chat. Miss Venom's ability is incredible no matter how many times she looks at it. Tony sighed, his eyes full of amazement. That's right, my wife is the best. Chino said with a proud look on his face. Pepper is the best. Tony retorted unwillingly. The two men argue endlessly about whose wife is awesome. I'm really grateful, my friend, I don't know how to thank you. Tony looked at Chino sincerely, looking solemn. Whether it was my previous life-saving grace or the relationship between Pepper and I owe you too much. I won't give you 10% of the shares. Tony gritted his teeth, this is no longer the limit that will not affect the situation of the group. No, I plan to start my own company recently. If you really want to thank me, how about doing me a favor? Chino said with a smile. Don't be a little bit small, then I'll think you're insulting me. Tony picked up a glass of water and took a sip. Do you think it's big if you transform hell? Puff, hell, what kind of steel city do you want to transform into? Tony choked directly by the water and coughed violently, feeling a bad premonition. Natural beauty. How is the progress? I haven't started yet, there's no way. I'm short of money and people now, and I'm dealing with the surrounding magma. I want to go and see what you mentioned first. Tony felt that he had exaggerated the seamouth a little, dealing with magma. What a harsh environment this is. No problem. The two plan to go to hell. Venom, Pamela, Damien, Tony and I are going to hell to do something. Chino said to her family. I'm going, too. Pamela immediately said, just reunited with her dear, and she was reluctant to part so quickly. Pepper, do you want to go and have a look together? Venom invites Pepper. Okay, Pepper responded without hesitation, and she was also curious about what the legendary hell looked like. Pepper, my dear, maybe there is a throne of flame specially prepared for you in hell, haha. Tony said with a slight smile on his face. HMPH, you will joke with me. If there is really something like that, I think it will be prepared for you. Pepper gave Tony a coquettish look. Maybe the demons of hell will regard you as a distinguished guest and offer you a pile of burning gems. Tony continued to use his imagination and spoke vividly. Then you are the #1 target of the demons, and it depends on whether you can still talk so poorly. Pepper said in a pretense of anger as he held his hands in front of his chest. Oh, don't be angry, my dear, maybe there is a mysterious spring in hell that will keep you young forever. Tony hurriedly coaxed. Pepper said speechlessly. How could there be such a thing? This is really there, Chino said seriously. What? Tony and Pepper said in unison with shock. The next medicine I will sell is to give you some at that time. Chino replied with a smile. Good brother, Chino, by the way, does that potion have any effect? Tony said with a slutty look on his face and winked. Don't worry, there will be. Tony walked through the portal and was instantly unable to open his eyes by the golden light. It took him a while to get used to the light. However, when he saw the scene in front of him, he was shocked and stood on the spot. The eyes are filled with gold and gems, piled up into towering mountains, and the dazzling light is almost dizzy. Chino, didn't you say you were short of people and money? The gold here can be bought all over the world, you are cheating on the ghost. Tony asked in disbelief with wide eyes. I don't know what's going on. Chino also looked dull. He had no idea when his health turned into this. Pamela's eyes widened, full of incredibleness. This is too exaggerated. Pepper covered his mouth and murmured to himself, I've never seen so much wealth piled up together. Venom said excitedly, wow, this is simply a treasure ocean. I'm going to explore. The voice of Lai Shi from afar, you trash, move these to the palace quickly. But my sister's head, your majesty's palace is almost filled. A demon replied tremblingly. Then you won't open a new palace, I have to teach you this. She said fiercely with his hands on his hips. Yes. A submissive voice responded. Chino also came here, and saw a group of demons pushing a cart to transport treasures. The scene was chaotic and busy. Chino thoughtful and understood the source of these treasures. She, shouted Chino. Young master. She was startled by the sudden voice and turned around quickly. What's going on? After Zai's explanation, Chino understood. These are the treasures in Mephisto's treasure house, and they were swallowed by 2 demons and brought back. As a result, they accidentally fell to the ground and all the treasures were sprayed out. Young master, if you have so much treasure, your transformation plan will definitely be successful. She looked at Chino with anticipation, her eyes flashing with excitement, waiting for praise. I don't think so, Tony said with a serious expression as he looked at the gems and gold coins everywhere. Why? She stared at the human with dissatisfaction, his eyes full of anger. If so much gold appears in human society in a nutshell, it will cause a serious economic crisis. If it is serious, it may also cause a world war. Tony said with a serious face. That really can't be sold. Chino frowned, and after thinking for a while, he also understood the severity of the consequences. Why is this? She was a little disappointed and muttered, it took a lot of effort. The devouring demon and the space demon at this time said that they had something to say. It's not that you can't sell it all. You have to control the quantity and sell it bit by bit. After all, gold is also a consumable in the industry. Tony said slowly. That's good. She breathed a sigh of relief, and finally let go of his heart. Fortunately, it was not in vain. The demons who participated in the war this time, go and ask if they have anything they want. If not, they will be paid to them and they will be able to use it in the future. Chino ordered methodically. Yes, master, she responded respectfully. Do you have anything you want? Chino asked looking at her. Master, I'm fine. She secretly looked at Chino, but in the end she didn't dare to say it. Leave Zai's reward to me. Venom smiled and hugged her in the evening and walked towards the corner. Mrs. Venom, she didn't dare to resist, so she had to follow him obediently. Chino turned to Pamela and said, Pamela, you take Pepper and Damien around, and you can just take it if you see what you like. Okay, dear, Pamela responded, then walked towards Kabao Mountain with Pepper and Damien, knowing that her dear was going to have a serious matter. Chino, take me to a high place, Tony said. Okay, Chino said, picking up Tony's clothes and flying towards the height of the palace. What a bad flight experience. After Tony landed, he quickly sorted out his clothes and complained. You are not a beauty, are you still expecting me to give you a princess hug? Chino teased. Then I would rather die. Tony rolled his eyes and replied angrily. After chatting, Tony looked at the harsh environment of hell, without warm sunshine, without fertile soil, only groups of volcanoes rising and falling, and dust from the sky, and he was silent. It will take hundreds of years to complete this into a natural forest, even with its wisdom. Can't do it, Tony, Chino asked as she looked at Tony who was in silence. How is that possible? I'm Tony Stark, don't confuse me with ordinary scientists. Tony rolled his eyes wide, and then, he began to design various solutions quickly in his mind. Tell me about your original plan first. Tony came to his senses and said to Chino. According to my plan, the demons deal with the surrounding volcanoes, absorb the energy inside, and fill it with the mountain to turn it into an extinct volcano. Then the soil is transported from the outside and the earth is covered with the ground, and finally Pamela cultivates new plants for planting. Quote. After listening to this rough plan, even calling it a plan is simply an insult to the word plan, and it can only be said to be a reckless operation. Oh, your plan was definitely something you thought of when you were so angry. Tony patted his forehead helplessly, looking speechless. There was Dr. Banner, but he was busy with the company and the medicine, so I tried to do it myself first. And I'm here to ask you for help, Tony Stark, the greatest genius of this century. Quote. Chino scratched her head, knowing that he was not the material for scientific research, but he believed Tony could do it. Ahem, okay, who made me your friend? Tony smiled proudly, then said seriously, list my plan first. From magma energy power generation devices to large air purification towers, the role of each step is clearly explained to Chino. This is the initial plan. I will send these drawings and production lines for these things in a few days, just use them. Tony talked for a long time in one breath, and at this moment he couldn't help but feel dry. He licked his lips, picked up a glass of water handed over by Chino, and drank it all in one go. Chino patted Tony on the shoulder and said sincerely, thank you for your hard work, Tony, you have helped a lot. I believe hell will be completely renewed. Tony pursed his lips, his eyes full of confusion, and asked. Chino, why do you do such a thankless thing? Don't fool me with S.H.I.E.L.D's trick. If you just want to improve people's livelihood, you can build a steel city. Quote. Now he has been working hard to transform hell just to make it look better. He doesn't believe this reason no matter what. Chino was silent for a while and asked back, why do you think I did this? Noah's Ark. Tony stared at Chino, Obadiah, the Lord of Hell, and the treasures that had accumulated in his mind. Feeling him intuitively, the human world is becoming more and more dangerous. Chino, can you tell me? You obviously have such a powerful force, why do you still need this? Tony's eyes were full of inquiry and confusion, as if waiting for Chino to give an answer that would convince him. I saw the future, alien invasion, God's return, demons' destruction, super criminals, time cutting. Chino said slowly, his voice low and solemn. As Chino told her, Tony's face gradually became ugly, as if she was shrouded in a layer of haze. He did not doubt Chino's words, and Chino's grand and determined hell transformation plan in front of him had already explained it all. So, this is the refuge you have built to protect yourself when the crisis comes. Tony's tone was a little low. How is it possible? Hell is my home now. I really want hell to be more beautiful. Another plan is to be the base camp and the rear. In your eyes, I am so timid and afraid of things. Chino widened his eyes and looked at Tony with a fool's eyes. Sorry. Tony's tone was filled with a hint of guilt. You should guess how my ability came about. Chino said bluntly. When Natasha said the name of the poison ivy last time, he guessed that they might have noticed it, but he didn't deliberately hide. I know, DC Comics, Superman's abilities are really outrageous. Thinking of the information I had checked before, Tony sighed. That's right, I copied the power of Superman. I can solve most of the crisis I mentioned before, but I am worried that I will not take care of the people around me when the fight comes. That's why I started to transform hell. Just like Tony, because of your negligence, Pepper was kidnapped. Quote. Chino said seriously. Upon hearing this, Tony relaxed, and he had also seen Chino's power a little. He nodded and said. So that's the case. I misunderstood you, Chino, but your consideration is indeed very thorough. Chino continued. In the face of a crisis of that level, any little negligence can have irreparable consequences, and I don't want to put people I care about in danger. Tony agrees. I can understand what you think. After going through Pepper, I understand the importance of protecting those around me. Chino smiled and said, so, this transformation of hell is not only for refuge, but also for giving everyone a safe rear. So, Tony, I need your help. The faster this hell is built, the better. Quote. Tony also got the motivation. Don't worry, then let's transform this hell together to deal with future crises. Then this one is for you, the pass to hell, and the other one is for Pepper. If you encounter danger, you can run to hell directly. Chino handed over 2 stone tablets. The corners of Chino's mouth rose slightly, and a smirk that was not easy to detect flashed across his face. He was secretly proud in his heart. The Minister of Hell Construction has been in place. Ah! Just as Chino found a Minister of Construction with joy, a scream came sharply from the distance. Pepper. Tony looked at Pepper flying over in shock when he heard the sound. Pepper rode a broom and happily flew to Tony and stopped. Immediately afterwards, Pamela, Venom, she and Damien flew over, but they did not ride a broom. Tony, it's so exciting. Pepper waved the broom in his hand, his little face flushed with excitement. Pepper, how did you do it? Tony frowned, took the broom from Pepper's hand and checked it carefully, murmured. It's very light, woody, and has no energy. It's just a broom for cleaning. No, the problem with the broom, this is the power of magic. Chino sensed the extra magic power from them. Dear, we found this. Pamela handed over a book. A beginner of magical spells. Is this still there in Mephisto's treasure house? Chino took the Introduction to Magical Spells, handed over by Pamela, and quickly read the entire book in just a few seconds. His eyes were focused and quick, and his fingers flipped the pages so quickly that he could hardly see clearly. But which demon god did you borrow the magic power from? Chino's face looked a little serious, and she asked as she glanced back and forth on everyone. In the Marvel world, all magic is borrowed from demons, such as Vishandi, Demaum, etc. But this all comes at a cost, and the loss of the body is second, and the use of magic sometimes means borrowing power from certain magic entities. This is like a loan. The user needs to bear the responsibility for repayment. If he fails to repay on time or violates the agreement with the magic entity, he will face punishment from the magic entity. Young master, I borrowed this. She said, her voice a little timid. I have a lot of magic, I'll lend it to the young master's friends. Dear, don't blame she. We couldn't help but want to try the legendary magic. Pamela hurriedly pleaded for she. Chino, I'm watching, it's okay. Venom was not afraid, knowing that Chino was worried about them. Godfather, I'm sorry. Damien also lowered his head, getting angry when he saw the Godfather for the first time. Sorry, Mr. Chino. Pepper apologized as well. Tony didn't plead for mercy. He knew that there was no one in this world who borrowed you for no reason. He either had a good relationship or had to pay interest. Is the interest of the demon god so easy to pay? Chino frowned, and after a moment of silence, he said, nothing is the case, fortunately no trouble this time. What I borrowed was Zai's magic. If it were those demons, it would not be a joke. If they were not done properly, they would cause big trouble. Quote. After hearing this, everyone nodded repeatedly, saying that they would never dare to do so. At the same time, they were reluctant to look at the broom in their hands. The power of magic is really fascinating. Chino pondered for a moment, then said, from now on, your magic will be paid by hell, but you can only use magic in hell. After saying that, a dazzling red light lit up on his wrist, like a lively silk thread, instantly connecting the magic of hell to them. Hell is following him. If one day they go to other worlds, they will fly in the sky and fall suddenly. The few people immediately felt the magic power that kept gushing out of their bodies, their eyes lit up with excitement, cheered happily, and then they couldn't wait to fly to the sky to play. She, go too, look at them. Chino turned around and ordered she beside her. Yes, young master, she responded and flew happily towards the sky. Tony looked up at Pepper flying in the sky, his eyes full of tenderness and emotion. I've never seen Pepper. She always looked very busy with such a happy smile, or she would just clean up the mess for me. Chino patted Tony on the shoulder and said, maybe the pressure on weekdays is too great, which makes her rare moment of relaxation, and you shouldn't be here now, go and play together. After saying that, Tony suddenly felt a strange force emerge in his body, and his hand was also stuffed into the book. I'll go first. After Chino finished speaking, she left a broom and flew quickly into the sky towards Venom, Pamela and the others. Tony looked at the broom left by Chino and shook his head disdainfully. I'm Tony Stark, how can I use this thing when flying? Tony mumbled, turning on the book and finding the page of flying. This spell is so awkward. Tony finished chanting intermittently, and his body slowly floated up. The feeling of flying is completely different from when wearing steel armor. It is completely dependent on flying by itself, and it is still shaking when blown by the wind from the sky. And it's insecure. Take a deep breath, you are the one who flew over 8,000 meters. After self-suggestion, Tony tried to stabilize his body and floated straight towards Pepper. After performing several difficult movements, Pepper was as light as the wind and had completely mastered the flying skills. Human desire for the sky has never stopped, and at this moment, Pepper was immersed in this wonderful feeling of free soaring, and she shouted happily. Pamela, Venom, I love hell. The smile filled with joy is like blooming flowers, gorgeous and charming. Then hell is always welcome to you, Miss Pepper. As the hell demon Lord Chino responded with a smile. I even began to think about whether to develop hell in the future as a tourist attraction. You can consider it and take flight as a feature, but you need to add some restrictions, otherwise it will be easy to cause trouble. Pepper, I'm here. Tony's stiff figure slowly floated over, his expression tense, and the lack of real feeling under his feet made him extremely uncomfortable. Tony, what kind of look are you doing, ha 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 ha. Pepper couldn't help laughing as he looked at Tony's embarrassing look. The confident and chic Tony Stark will also encounter difficulties. Her laughter echoed in the air, full of joy and warmth. Tony was a little embarrassed at first, but when he saw Pepper's youthful and brilliant appearance, he couldn't help but be stunned. Just when he was stunned, the flight technique that he had not mastered had dissipated directly and was instantly pulled by gravity. Ah, Tony. Pepper's face changed suddenly. He controlled the broom to swoop down without hesitation, and accurately caught Tony and let him sit on the broom. It's okay, Tony, Pepper asked with a worried look on his face, his hands tightly surrounding Tony's waist, fearing that he would fall down again. Tony felt a little embarrassed at first, but felt the blonde hair shaved on his face and the softness behind him, and he said with a moving heart. Pepper, hold it tight, I'm a little scared. Then let's go down. Pepper said as he controlled the broom and flew down. No, I mean, just let me adapt in the air. Tony hurriedly made excuses, and even slight beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. Pepper also realized that she was not a teenage girl anymore. She smiled slightly and hugged Tony tighter with her hands. Is this okay? Well, this is just right. Tony's mouth raised slightly, enjoying the warmth of this moment. I didn't expect that I would eat other people's dog food. Venom flew in the air, looking at Tony and Pepper's sweet appearance, and couldn't help but mutter. It's normal. I've been watching them every day during this period of time and I'll stick together every day after I've confirmed the relationship. Pami waved his hand, with a look of habit. Damien was on the side, concentrating on experimenting with other magic. She was watching from the side, and this little guy was the one who needed to watch among the group. Chino, what are you doing? Venom saw a red screen appearing in front of Chino and curiously approached. Drunk, you will not be injured when you fall from high altitude. Instructions for use of flying magic. No access to the area. Chino, are you making game code? Venom's face was full of confusion. It's almost the same. There will be a lot of humans in hell here in the future. I plan to get some special features and some restrictions. Chino nodded, his fingers quickly operating on the screen. After absorbing the fragments of hell, he felt that there were some new changes in this hell. In addition to the precise command operation, the scope of hell has been expanding and its power has become stronger. If he absorbed enough cores, he even felt that he might be able to connect Marvel and DC worlds with hell. However, he was not in a hurry to do this. At least he would consider it if he had the power to fight against the 5 gods. Chino, can I let me play with it? Venom's eyes shone on one side, and he couldn't help but itchy hands, and he said eagerly. Yes, you can also help me think about some possible situations. Chino readily split a screen and handed it over. Okay. Venom gave a thumbs up excitedly, flew to Pamela with the screen, and said happily, Pamela, let's play together. Pamela nodded with a smile, and the two of them immediately started to operate on the screen, with a focused and devoted look on their faces. Chino didn't care, and could change even if there was a conflicting instruction. He continued to focus on perfecting the part of his hands, the red light shining on his serious face. Time passes slowly, and it is already evening when I return to the world. Pepper was still holding the broom in his hand and planned to take it home, so he jumped on the spot. I suddenly felt a little uncomfortable when I got back to the ground. Pepper was disappointed. Pamela smiled and said, we can make an appointment to go to hell next time. When my dear plan officially begins, the scenery will be more beautiful and fun. Aha, Pepper nodded repeatedly, his eyes full of anticipation. Thank you, Chino, today was a perfect day. Tony smiled and patted Chino on the shoulder, his face filled with satisfaction. What a perfect date. After watching Tony and the others leave, Chino also prepared to take a good rest, but as soon as he turned his head, he saw an unexpected figure. Why are you coming out? Chino raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at the petite figure. That, young master, it was my wife who pulled me out. She lowered her head, her hands were stolen with her clothes, her voice as thin as a mosquito and flies, and she actually lied to the young master. Chino, let's go out shopping with she tomorrow and let her stay here for one night. Venom said coquettishly as he hugged Chino's arm. Pamela nodded, echoing, yeah, my dear, she has been exhausted during this period, so let her relax. I didn't say I didn't agree, I was just a little surprised, but you have worked hard during this period. Chino said gently, no need to work hard, it is my honor to serve the young master. She raised his head and looked firmly at Chino. Chino smiled and said, don't be so reserved. Let's have a good rest tonight and go play tomorrow. A bright smile appeared on Zai's face and she said, thank you, master, thank you, madam. Damien, you have also rested early recently, do you know? Chino looked at Damien with concern in his eyes. Godfather, I have been resting very early. Damien said with his chest straight. Then what's going on with the dark circles on your face? Chino smiled and pinched Damien's little face, his eyes full of teasing. That's, well, Godfather, I've been playing late recently. Damien's voice lowered, his eyes dodged. Stuck bought a game console for Damien before. Damien, you got up in the middle of the night and I'm going to confiscate it for a while. Pamela suddenly thought of something, her face darkened, and she looked at Damien sternly. Sorry, Mama Pamela. Damien panicked at first, but when he saw Pamela's angry look, he quickly lowered his head and admitted his mistake. The suppressed feelings in the Assassin League gradually recovered during this warm life. It's okay, Pamela, Chino has done a lot of this. Venom walked forward and gently soothed Pamela. I won't confiscate this time. Pamela is also worried about your body. If a child doesn't sleep well, he will not grow tall. You don't want to fight Bruce in the future and can only hit the other party's knees. Chino deliberately raised his face and scared Damien. He didn't care about this. When the child was curious, he had done this, but he still had to control it. But this trick is very useful. Damien thought of that kind of scene, nodded seriously and said, I understand, Godfather, I won't stay up late anymore. Good boy. Chino gently touched Damien's little head. It is easy to communicate with such children. They know what is good and what is bad and have strong self-control. Pamela, take Damien to take a shower, I'll wait for you in the room. Chino blinked, his eyes filled with ambiguity, and the familiar nectar was always eaten. Pamela's face turned slightly red in an instant, she gave Chino a coquettish look and said softly, I know I'm not serious. Then she picked up Damien and walked upstairs. Can you help me? Okay, Mrs. Pamela. The dazed she came to his senses, responded quickly, and hurriedly followed. I'm sorry, Mama Pamela, you've disappointed. I'm so disappointed, I'm just worried about your body. As a punishment, I'll have to drink half an extra glass of milk every morning in the future. Yes, Mama Pamela. As the sound went away, Chino also looked at Venom, her eyes full of anticipation. Don't forget to promise me before. Don't worry, I guarantee you will be satisfied, but I have to go and wash it first. Together, Chino giggled, holding Venom's hand, and couldn't wait to walk towards the bathroom. One night passed. The sky outside was still a little dim. Chino opened his eyes in a daze, but felt his body as if he was imprisoned, so he looked down. On the left is the Venom that is tightly clinging to him, on the right is the Pamela who is nestled with him, and there is still a squid in the middle. The crazy and beautiful scenes of last night gradually became clear in my mind. It's the first time I feel exhausted. Chino said helplessly that since he transplanted Logan's healing factor, he had always thought that his endurance was endless. But the facts from last night told him that even if he has a strong physique, he will be tired. Young master, I want. Zai's murmur sounded, and her little face rubbed against Chino's chest, like a lazy kitten. Is you a succubus or a transformed demon? Chino thought to himself in his heart, but did not move. He closed his eyes again and murmured. Sleep for a while. A ray of sunlight rose from outside the window, soft light shining on the messy bed. Master. She narrowed her eyes and looked at Chino's sleeping face sleepingly, then got up on Chino like a kitten and kissed her. It's early. Chino was also awakened by Zai's movements, and slowly opened his eyes, his voice with a lazy feeling of waking up. She shuddered and widened his eyes in an instant. This is not a dream. I'm sorry, I actually treated the young master as a bed. She was in a hurry to get up. After seeing she get up, Chino also sat up from the bed, looked at she who was standing beside the bed and smiled. Aren't you very brave yesterday? Why are you doing this now? She covered her face shyly, her voice as thin as a mosquito and flies. Young master, I was the one who broke the enemy last night. It doesn't matter, it's better to say I feel great. Chino's face showed a somewhat aftertaste expression. Although she liked the big sister, it was good to change her taste occasionally. It's good if the young master is satisfied. She lowered his head and whispered softly. Chino also noticed the stain on Yui's body. It's very uncomfortable to be sticky, right? Let's go take a shower. Chino said without saying a word, picking she up and walking towards the bathroom. After turning on the shower, Chino carefully washed Zai's hair, gently applied shower gel, carefully washed her body, and then put her in the bathtub for soaking. Shi enjoyed the care of the young master, and his heart was filled with joy. I finally got it. Next, it's your own cleaning. Young master, I'll help. Okay, help me rub my back. At first, she still rubbed Chino's back honestly, but after a while, he fell to another place. Chino spoke helplessly. I think the young master seems a little uncomfortable. Zai's voice was a little shy and playful. You just need to wash it again later. It doesn't matter. She blushed. After Chino and Yui washed it again, they saw Venom jokingly saying, Are you satisfied yesterday, master? The tail sound was elongated, and the tone was full of ambiguity. After hearing this, Chino was excited, quickly suppressed her thoughts and said, Venom, it's normal, so we don't have to go out today. Okay, Chino. Venom put away his joking expression. Good morning, Mrs. Venom. She gave her greetings respectfully, and she knew in her heart that she could not get the young master without the help of Venom. I also call you Mrs., just call me sister. Venom said with a smile. No, she is a servant. She was very serious about this. He didn't change his words when he was in the bathroom. He still insisted on his identity at this moment. She likes it, you can call it whatever you like. Chino said. Yes, young master, she responded. By the way, where is Pamela? Chino turned to Venom and asked. Pamela went to take a shower next door, and she should be preparing breakfast now. Venom replied. All the chefs in the manor are in hell, and Frank is busy forming a squad. Originally, Chino wanted to recruit a chef again, but was stopped by Pamela, saying that she had nothing to do and that she was responsible for the food. Several people went downstairs. Damien was already sitting at the dining table waiting for breakfast, and Pamela was busy in the kitchen. Madam Pamela, I'll help you. She quickly walked into the kitchen and said. Yesterday I was so tired, were you okay? Pamela asked with concern. She shook her head, took the plate from Pamela's hand, and said, Madam Pamela, I'm fine, the demon has a strong recovery. So amazing, no splits are okay. Pamela was a little envious. You should know that her physical strength was also very strong under the blessing of the green of all things, but she still couldn't beat Chino. Madam Pamela, Duan's hand trembled. I won't say it anymore. On the dining table. Good morning, Godfather, Venom Mom, Damien said obediently. Good morning, Damien, Chino responded with a smile. Damien, the fragrance is soft. Venom was full of love and kissed Damien on the face. Although she quit the human brain, the smell of the development of human cubs still makes her like it very much. Damien stayed quietly in Venom's arms. Although she was scared at first, she gradually got used to it and found that she had no malice. Damien, what are you doing lately? Chino began to care about Damien's recent situation. Study, train, and play games. Damien said, her little face unconsciously flushed when she talked about playing games. Chino thought for a while and said, Damien, do you want to go to school? His eyes were concerned. Although Damien was precocious, Chino still felt that it was not good for a child to stay at home all the time. What is going to school? Damien frowned, feeling very strange to the word. School is in one place, where a group of people of about age learn new knowledge and can make friends, Chino explained patiently. Godfather, I have a special teacher when learning knowledge, and what are my friends? Are they powerful? Damien looked puzzled, his eyes full of confusion. Among the people in Lei Xiaogu's possession are specialized teachers who are responsible for Damien's study. Moreover, the education of the Assassin League that he received since childhood also had a great influence on him. In his cognition, strength is the most important thing, and the concept of friend is very vague to him. Chino was speechless, opened her mouth, but didn't know how to answer Damien's question, and a look of helplessness appeared on her face. Ha ha ha. Venom could no longer help seeing Chino's cripple, and laughter echoed in the room. Chino looked dark and glared at Venom hard, feeling depressed. Damien looked confused, looked at Chino and then at the laughing Venom, completely unaware of what was going on. Finally stopped. Venom said, looking at Damien. Damien, although you have specialized teachers and the people in the school are not strong, this kind of ordinary life is what your father has experienced and what he hopes for. Damien lowered his head and thought for a while, with a hint of contemplation on his tender little face, then raised his head and said, then I want to give it a try, my father's past life, Godfather. Venom raised his eyebrows proudly. Well, I'll find someone to arrange it. Chino nodded. Just then, Pamela and she also walked over with their plates. Dear, what happened just now? Sister Venom laughed so loudly. Pamela asked curiously. Before Chino could speak, Venom couldn't wait to tell what had just happened. Go to school. It's good to do this, contact some peers. After hearing this, Pamira looked at Damien gently, her eyes full of approval. After the few people finished their breakfast, they went out together. This time Chino drove himself, and the others got into the car one after another. The sun shines on the car body, refracting dazzling light. The car started smoothly and drove away from the manor. Along the way, everyone talked and laughed. In addition to shopping yesterday, she also has to buy some clothes for she. After all, her clothes are just some fun types except leather clothes. You can appreciate them yourself, but you can't be seen by outsiders. I came to the Manhattan area last time again. The dilapidated neighborhood last time has now become a brand new look, as if the chaos had never happened before, and everything was as if nothing had happened. Chino walked in the middle, with Venom on the left and Pamela on the right. Two beauties of different styles accompanied each other, attracting the attention of many people. Venom is ostentatious, Pamela is gentle and elegant, while Chino is handsome and chic. The combination of the three has undoubtedly become a beautiful scenery on the street. As for Damien's she who was holding behind, it was considered the child of two girls, which attracted a lot of jealous eyes. Those eyes were both envy of Chino's love and jealousy for controlling the two women at the same time. I came to a large clothing store, which was spacious and bright, and the clothes hangers were covered with all kinds of clothes. Venom and Pamela were excitedly choosing various clothes to change into she and Damien, asking Chino's opinions from time to time. How about Lolita in the sunset? Not bad, very cute. You try this dress again. Good, very beautiful. How is Damien wearing this little suit? Not bad, very handsome. Venom looked at him speechlessly. You're just saying it's good. Well, it's very good. Forget it, you're responsible for watching. For a time, Pamela and Damien became dressing dolls and tried various styles. After interest, Venom and Pamela also changed several sets, which turned into their personal show in the end. For a moment, Chino looked so blindly. Black silk, suspenders are suitable for Venom, Pamela. White silk is more suitable for the evening. As for Damien, he had been sitting next to Chino and enjoying it together. However, this side soon attracted malicious gazes, and Chino frowned. The pattern of the god of the earth in the core lit up. Those subtle voices can be heard clearly. Prepare to start, these pigs look very rich. Read, it's all people here, it's not good to do it directly. Idiot, just take them to a place where there is no one and do it. I've been eyeing that redhead for a long time. Then I want that little one. A cold color flashed across Chino's eyes, and the cold eyes seemed to freeze people in an instant. Godfather, Damien, who was beside him, looked at the Godfather beside him with fear, with such a powerful murderous aura. The murderous aura on Chino's body disappeared instantly, and he reached out and touched Damien's head. Sorry, Damien, I scared you. Chino's tone was full of apology. Godfather, who made you angry? Damien lifted his head. I wasn't angry, I just thought of something bad. Chino smiled gently, his smile as gentle as the spring breeze, making people feel extremely warm. He is really not angry now. After all, who will be angry with the dead? Soon, several people leaned over from different directions, and one of them was a pretty good-looking one. The woman walked to Chino and suddenly fell down and had not started talking. A knee fell from the sky and fell heavily on the woman's neck. I don't know if she was fainting or really dead. The clerks in the clothing store around them had not had time to scream. FBI handles the case. Arrest a group of criminal gangs. The FBI agent pressed on one knee to the woman, accidentally swept over Chino's gaze and instantly broke out in cold sweat. Although Chino was unveiled that night, the camera was a little far away and could only take pictures of Chino's blurry appearance. The people did not know what Chino looked like. But he knew that the old man in front of him was angry and the whole country was about to be destroyed. Seeing that the situation was wrong, the few people around him were about to escape, but they were quickly pressed to the ground by several people in casual clothes and took them away without saying a word. The whole process was clean and neat, and it was not more than 30 seconds before the people around him could even fully react. Everything was over. Mr. Chino, long time no see. A gentle voice came, with a bit of intimacy and familiarity in the voice. Chino turned his head and saw Coulson wearing a casual outfit slowly walking in from a corner. He had a kind smile as always on his face and a bag of drinks in his hand. Give it, the oriental drink, I think it tastes good. Coulson handed over the drink. Chino took it and saw that the green packaging was printed with 2 English letters. The corners of his mouth twitched. This was all Marvel World. He could still see this, but he didn't refuse. He opened a bottle and handed it to Damien next to him. Is S.H.I.E.L.D. is monitoring me? Chino looked directly at Coulson, with a hint of scrutiny in her eyes. Coulson's expression remained unchanged. No, but we monitor every large shopping mall. This is the truth. After confirming Chino's ability, no one dared to monitor him, but there was no other way. Traffic surveillance and mall cameras will alert S.H.I.E.L.D. as long as they detect the appearance of Chino or the people around them. That's fine. Chino nodded slightly, his expression slightly eased. Free bodyguards who don't like it. I don't want to see them. I understand, they will go to the line to execute the death penalty in the afternoon. Don't look at Coulson's appearance as a good man, you should know that he is a level 8 agent and Hawkeye is only level 7. Mr. Chino, can you ask where you have been during this period? Coulson asked seemingly inadvertently, but there was a hint of searching in his eyes. He also read the report that time, and a red hand caught it and disappeared. Nick Fury asked you to ask. Chino looked at Venom and the others dress up show intently and responded casually. That's right, the director couldn't sleep well during the period when you disappeared. Coulson shrugged helplessly and sat opposite Chino, not daring to look at the beautiful view behind him. Responsible for my consumption today, I'll tell you the delivery. Chino's tone was relaxed, as if he was talking about a trivial matter. Coulson's eyes lit up, and he didn't expect to get the answer so easily. No problem, he responded without hesitation. I fought with other lords of hell and snatched some treasures, it's that simple. Chino said lightly. Other hell, you mean more than one hell. Coulson's expression became extremely shocked in an instant, his eyes widening. Well, I have 10 of them. Chino threw out a bombshell directly. 10, Coulson couldn't help but exclaim, his voice filled with incredible feelings. Chino couldn't help laughing when she saw the incredible expression on Coulson's face. Coulson looked at Chino's unrestrained smile and calmed down and said, you are lying to me. If there were 10 demon kings, the earth would have been destroyed long ago. No, it's just that those guys are blocked from the earth by the secret mages and cannot get in. Chino stopped laughing and told the truth. After hearing this, Coulson breathed a sigh of relief and asked, who are the secret masters? Most of the secret organizations that have been passed down for millions of years are not for fame and fortune, and they are the real guardians of the earth, the new S.H.I.E.L.D. Chino's eyes were filled with admiration. Quote. Coulson looked at Chino speechlessly. The look was very obvious. How did you come in? I'm different, I have a backstage. Chino raised his eyebrows. Although he didn't know why the Supreme Master has not appeared yet, he should have acquiesced to his existence. Then where are they? What else Coulson wanted to ask. Chino had already gotten up from the sofa and left. I have answered the questions, please give me some greetings to Nick Fury for me, and hope he can have a good night's sleep next. Looking at Chino's back as she left with Yingying and Yanyan, Coulson smiled bitterly. If he sleeps well, he will not be able to sleep well at night. Sir, how to deal with these? The agent in plain clothes appeared and pointed to a pile of clothes and said, "Pay the bill and deliver it to the door of the manor." Coulson said helplessly. "But, we don't have enough money." The agent looked embarrassed. "I'll pay." Coulson realized that it was full of luxury accessories, and the cheapest clothes were thousands of dollars. Then he would ask SHED for reimbursement. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but sigh. Chino and his group continued to go to other stores, continued to watch clothing shows, and bought all the way. Although I am not short of money, I can't afford to spend my own money. I felt that I had been shopping almost all, and the group came to the restaurant last time again. They sat around the table and ate the exquisite desserts, and Pamela looked out the window and said comfortably, "The weather is so good today." As soon as he finished speaking, a huge ball of sandstorm whizzed past the window, and the dust in the sky instantly blocked the sun. Chino and his friends looked at her speechlessly. The second time. "This has nothing to do with me," Pamela defended with an innocent look on her face. At the same time, a white figure flew past outside the window. "That's Gwen." Manhattan. A huge sandstorm was raging on the streets, and finally stopped suddenly next to the armored car that came to the bank entrance. "What's that?" a cash transporter shouted in horror, and before he finished speaking, he was suddenly shot by the violent sand and dust. Another cash transporter hurriedly picked up the intercom and shouted, "The armored car was hijacked and asked for support." I saw the sand and gravel in the sandstorm gathering, gradually condensing into a tall man wearing a green striped shirt. Flint Marl showed up and strode into the armored car, loaded 2 bags of US dollars and was about to leave. With a drip, several police cars drove towards the intersection like lightning, blocking the intersection. "Put down the money in your hands." Police officers patrolling around got out of the car and pointed guns at Flint Marl, looking nervous and serious. "I don't want to hurt you, get out of the way," Flint reminded loudly, with a hint of warning in his voice. Shot. With a command, dense bullets shot at Flint like raindrops, instantly piercing through his body, but the edge was not flesh and blood, but the falling sand. I said, "Get out of the way." One of Flint's arms instantly turned into gravel and swung his waves. Countless gravels whizzed away like bullets, with a sharp sound of breaking through the air. The policemen's faces changed drastically, and they hurriedly hid behind the car, and the sound of sand and gravel colliding with the vehicles continued. While the police did not dare to show their heads, Flint turned around and wanted to run in another direction. At this moment, a white figure fell from the sky, instantly shooting out spider silk and stuck to the purse in his hand, and pulled it hard and snatched it over. "Sandman, this is not your thing." The white figure landed steadily. It was Gwen, the ghost spider. "Give me the money back," Flint shouted angrily, his eyes almost spitting out of fire. He was already full of anger at the police's shooting, but now he was furious by Spider-Man. Flint roared and rushed towards Gwen, and countless gravels rushed towards him like surging waves under his control. Gwen jumped flexibly and dodged, dancing in the air, while shooting spider silk constantly, trying to restrain Flint. "You are committing a crime, Sandman," said the ghost spider loudly. "I just need money," Flint roared. "This world has never been fair to me, I want to fight for myself." The two started a fierce chase on the street. The police watched nervously from the side and did not dare to intervene easily. They knew that their firepower did not seem to have much effect on the Sandman. The gravel gathered into a huge fist and smashed towards the ghost spider. Gwen ran and thought about countermeasures, knowing that Flint couldn't just escape like this, otherwise he would continue to commit crimes. Suddenly, she saw a construction site not far away and had an idea in her mind. The ghost spider deliberately directed Flint to the construction site. Flint was determined to take back his wallet, but he didn't notice the intention of the ghost spider and chased him hard. As soon as they entered the construction site, ghost spiders used spider silk to shuttle between various building materials, and Flint's gravel attack was greatly restricted here. He growled in anger, constantly destroying the surrounding buildings, trying to find the ghost spider. "You can't escape," Flint shouted. The ghost spider hid behind a huge steel beam and quietly observed Flint's actions. Seeing Flint's attention was all about her, she took the opportunity to shoot spider silk and connect some heavy building materials. As Flint approached, the ghost spider pulled the spider silk hard, and the building materials instantly smashed towards Flint. Flint had no time to hide and was pressed down heavily. "Ha, it's finally solved." The ghost spider breathed a sigh of relief. However, just when she thought the matter had been resolved, the gravel that was pressed down began to surge. Flint actually broke free from under the building materials and became even more angry. "You've completely angered me." Flint's body instantly turned into a huge sandstorm covering the sky and the sun, and rushed towards Gwen with a rushing force, as if she was about to submerge her entire body in this surging sandstorm. "Good here, let me try this trick." Gwen lifted his hand and saw a ray of light on his emerald ring on his ring finger. In an instant, a strong wind suddenly rolled around, and a majestic tornado rose on the flat ground. No. Flint tried his best to show and condense his body in the dust storm, but when he was halfway there, the gravel that made up his body was swept away by the powerful suction of the tornado, and the gravel continued to be lost. In the blink of an eye, only a violent and raging yellow tornado was left at the scene, and Flint's figure was gone. Done. Gwen pulled up her mask, revealing her delicate lower half of her face, and she breathed a long sigh of relief. You know, it's summer now, and she is still fighting in this tights, and the stuffy feeling makes her feel very uncomfortable. I really helped me a lot. I don't know when the big pervert will come back. Gwen muttered to herself, and she kissed the ring in her hand, which seemed to be still left with the warmth of Chino, and she missed Chino in her heart. I went to look for it a few days ago and only Sister Pamela and his newly adopted goddaughter were at home, which made her feel empty. Spider-Woman. The previous policeman and cash transporter appeared, looking at the tornado that was still in place in surprise, dumbfounded. Gwen said with a mask below. Police officer, I said it, call me Ghost Spider, Spider-Woman is not nice. Okay, Ghost Spider, the officer with obvious head said with a smile, his eyes full of gratitude. Most of them have a good impression of this spider that has been helping maintain orders. After all, with her here, the casualty rate of the police has been reduced a lot. Although some people think that she is undermining the authority of the police station and is not under control. Chapter 71. Ghost Spider, can you sign me? A young policeman looked at Gwen with admiration, his eyes flashing with excitement. Compared to male Spider-Man, female Spider-Man has more fans, with males accounting for the majority. Certainly. Gwen took the paper and pen handed over by the police, satisfying the little wish of his fans. After signing the autograph, Gwen came to the corner where he had been staying, picked up the bag he had snatched back, and handed it to the police. This is the stolen money snatched by the Sand People, please check it out. Okay, thank you for your hard work. The policeman took the bag and said solemnly. But I didn't notice that the sand around the construction site was also trembling and was gradually being swept into the tornado. At first, no one cared about it, and everyone was concentrating on discussing the Sand People's handling plan. However, the tornado gradually lost control, and the originally stable wind pillar began to shake violently, and the howling sound became more and more sharp. He is coming out, you guys are leaving. As soon as Gwen finished speaking, a 10-meter-high sand giant broke out from the tornado, and the powerful airflow rushed into the dust around him. I said, give me the money. The sand giant roared, holding his huge fists high and then smashing them down. The huge shadow instantly covered Gwen and the police, feeling suffocatingly oppressed. The policemen were frightened by this terrifying scene and their legs were shaking, and their faces were pale, trying to escape but unable to move. Of course it is okay for Gwen to run away herself. With her ability, she can escape from this place in an instant. But the police next to them would definitely be smashed into meat sauce under the heavy blow of this huge fist. Hope it won't hurt too much. Gwen squatted down slightly, his legs accumulating strength, and then jumped up violently. An airflow formed under her body instantly, providing acceleration, and she rushed towards the sand giant in the sky like a cannonball. Gwen was getting closer and closer with her huge fists, and she gritted her teeth and clenched her fists, ready to face the huge impact. It's true, I can't cherish myself. A helpless voice came from his ears, and Gwen felt an arm wrap around his waist, and then a soft force came, cleverly resolving the kinetic energy she was rushing forward. Boom! A loud noise echoed through the sky, and the huge fist on his head exploded instantly, turning into sand and dust in the sky. The strong fist wind whistled out, like a violent beast, blowing the scattered sand into the distance, forming a hazy sand curtain. The impact force brought by the explosion of the arm made the sand giant's huge body lose balance, and it fell backwards, leaning on the semi-built house, making a dull impact sound, raising a piece of dust. Chino! Gwen shouted in surprise, his eyes full of excitement and joy. The policemen on the ground stared at the sky blankly, their mouths slightly opened, their eyes filled with shock and awe. The golden cloak sways in the wind like a burning flame. The armor printed with S shines with a cold light, and the perfect figure shows an unparalleled sense of power, and the handsome face seems to be carefully carved by the gods. Even if I have never seen his true face, I know who he is. Devil! Some policemen couldn't help but shouted the name, with trembling and fear in his voice. Unlike Spider-Man, Chino acted in both the ability to summon demons or nearly destroy the country, and most people only had fear of him. Chino slowly landed from the sky, touching the ground with his feet gently, letting go of his hands, looking at Gwen with a smile, still leaning in his arms, eyes full of doting. Or why we'll go home now and let you lean slowly. Chino teased, his voice gentle and magnetic. Okay. No, when will you come back? Gwen responded subconsciously at first, then came to his senses, his pretty face turned red, and he hurriedly left Chino's broad and warm embrace. I just came back yesterday. I'll talk later. The matter is not over yet. Chino looked at the sand giant who stood up again. The sand giant absorbed the sand around him and quickly repaired his body. He had just come out of prison and did not know the existence of the Demon King. Why are you all here to stop me? I'm just grabbing some money, not all. The sand giant roared angrily, his voice full of resentment. Who cares about you? I'm because you almost hurt my girl. A light lit up in Chino's eyes. Buzz. The hot eyes shot out instantly, and a dazzling red light hit the body of the sand giant like a sharp sword. The body of the sand giant turned into hot glass the moment it touched the red light. Ah! Flint screamed in pain, manipulating the gravel to form the wall while trying to repair his body. But as the construction site gravel was exhausted, Flint could only use the gravel in his body to block the attack, and his huge body kept getting smaller. On the construction site, red glass liquid flowed, emitting a scorching high temperature. The police around wiped the sweat from their foreheads and did not dare to leave. Soon, Flint's body was less than 5 meters in size. Penny, Dad will bring you a lot of money right away. Flint's eyes flashed with fierceness and determination, leaving only about 1 meter of sand and gravel in his body, and quickly formed a shield with all the sand and glass on the ground, and moved forward little by little with the hot eyes. Penny, super hearing captured his voice. Chino remembered that there was a version of the Sandman who robbed her to cure her daughter. The shield in his hand became smaller and smaller, and just as Flint was already desperate, the hot eyes finally disappeared. Chance. Frank threw down the almost melted glass in his hand and was about to rush over, but his body softened and he fell to the ground and fell into a pile of sand and dust. He has reached his limit. Is money that important to him? Gwen felt a little sad. Although he was the enemy, his courage to charge towards death just now was also moving. Chino didn't answer, just looked at the dust on the ground and picked up a pendant with a photo inside. As family affection, the next second disappeared from the spot. Before Gwen could wonder where Chino was going, Chino reappeared again, carrying a few bags of sand in his hand and fell to the ground, forming a pile of sand. After a while, there was still no movement, and it seemed that I was really dead. Don't want to see your Penny again. Chino's voice came slowly. Flint, whose consciousness was already asleep, was instantly awakened by this sentence. Penny, I want to bring the money back. The thought flickered wildly in Flint's consciousness, and his nearly dissipated will regained. His obsession with his daughter stimulated his desire to survive. The pile of sand on the ground trembled again and slowly began to condense into a human form. The process of condensation was not smooth, and the middle continued to collapse, but in the end, it successfully became a human. Why save me? Flint looked at the man in front of him with a complicated expression. He obviously almost killed him just now, but he rescued him again. Chino handed over the pendant in her hand. I've got a fancy to your ability. Do you want to work for me? A legal income. Flint solemnly put away the pendant, knowing that he had no right to refuse, and asked, how much? 300,000 knives. Chino said his reward. Not enough, I want 1 million. I'll give it to me in 1 day, and I'll sell my life to you. Flint said firmly. My daughter's treatment costs are already owed 100,000 yuan, and at least 1 million yuan can be cured. Gwen felt a little complicated. Did he come out to rob for his daughter? No problem, sign it. Chino took out the Black Demon contract. The Sandman had a strong potential. As long as there was enough sand, he could even compete with him for a short time. Flint took it and looked at it. 1 million, no problem. He picked up the pen and signed it. Suddenly he saw it in front of him and glared at him. Did you write it wrong? Chino frowned and took it to take a look. I pay a monthly salary of 1 million. As an employee, you will become my lifelong subordinate, right? Chino said with a puzzled look on his face. 1 million a month. The police were shocked and could not believe their ears. Where did this come from? No, Chino, how can you have that much money? Gwen couldn't help but say. Flint also looked at Chino in disbelief, his eyes full of suspicion. Could it be that he was playing tricks on him? Have I told you? I am a shareholder of Stark Group and holds 20% of the shares. Chino said, tilting his head. Not at all. Gwen found that there were still many things she didn't know about her boyfriend. Do you want to sign? After-tax salary. Chino shook the contract in his hand, and the paper made a swinging sound. I want to sign, boss. Flint did not hesitate and quickly signed his name on the contract. His hand speed was astonishingly fast as he was afraid that the contract would disappear if it was one step late. He thought it was 1 million a year. Who doesn't know about Stark Group? A large company worth hundreds of billions of dollars. It's fine now, let's talk about the card number. Chino took out his phone while saying that, intending to let Lei Xiaogu make the money. Boss, I just came out of prison and my ID card and card have been frozen. Can I give cash? Flint scratched his head and said a little embarrassedly. Quote. Chino's eyes moved to the 2 stolen money bags on the ground, and the cash was ready. A slim figure blocked Chino's vision. This won't work, and if you recruit him as your subordinate, you will also have to compensate for the losses he just caused. Gwen said with his arms crossed over his chest. If it weren't for seeing that he didn't kill anyone this time, he would have sent him to prison no matter what he said. I just looked at it and didn't say I wanted to grab it. Chino had no choice but to look away and instead placed her slim figure. Wearing this tights, Gwen's delicate curves were perfectly outlined. With a slim waist, her slender legs are straight and powerful, and her concave and convex figure is full of charm and temptation. What are you looking at? Gwen shyly avoided his sight. But this outlines the seductive curve behind her, making her look even more graceful. It's nothing, I just want to change your suit. Chino's vision was not avoided at all, and she was confident that she would not dare to see anything about her girlfriend. Gwen was a little hot with his hot eyes, and ran behind him, pulling his head to Flint with both hands. Stop watching, you can handle his business first, Gwen said coquettishly. You mean you can watch it casually after it is done? Chino's lips raised, with a smirk. No, Gwen stamped his feet in anger. Flint lowered his head, not daring to show off his anger, feeling uneasy, and almost beat the boss's lover just now. Chino looked out the door and shouted loudly, Coulson, come here and do a favor. Coulson walked in steadily from the door, and he obviously heard what had just happened. Chino, if you have something to do, I need my help. I knowingly ask, cleanse his identity, and I can answer you with ordinary information. Chino rolled her eyes in anger. No problem, Flint Marco's criminal record is destroyed in 10 minutes. He will be an ordinary citizen, Coulson said without hesitation. Gwen didn't say anything when he looked at the PY transaction, and the police did not see it. This is what this country is, as long as there is enough exchange of interests, you can do anything. Flint looked excited, his body trembled slightly with excitement. He could see his daughter openly. Flint, go to this address to find someone named Lei Xiaogu, and he will advance you by 1 million. Chino said as he handed out a note. Chino turned his head and said to the police, you go too, each person receives 10,000, and the damage caused will be compensated for the original price. Flint, this money will be deducted from your salary next month. Oh yeah, the police and cash transporters all cheered, their excitement beyond words. A salary of 10,000 is their income for 2 months. Especially the cash transporter who was knocked out, looked at Flint gratefully, as if the previous conflict had never happened. Flint had no objection, and he would get a huge sum of millions immediately, so what was the deduction of some money? Is this okay? Chino looked at Gwen with a smile. It's average. Gwen said this, but the corners of her mouth under her mask were unconsciously curled. Go to GGSH restaurant, Pamela and the others are there too, I'll go there later, Chino said. Gwen nodded, turned around and left lightly, his figure looking particularly charming in the sun. Coulson thought, the identity of the ghost spider is no secret to them. She can give her father's position and sell her personal favors. As everyone left, Chino looked at Coulson. Quickly asked, my date today is not over yet. The address of the secret wizard. This information is not as cheap as you think. Coulson was not disappointed, he just tried it. New Mexico dropped a hammer from the sky yesterday. Do you know its origin? You really know this? Do you know the Nordic myth? Chino raised her eyebrows and kept her from selling it. Don't tell me that the gods are coming to the earth. Coulson smiled bitterly. That's not. Simply put, it is the story of Thor making a mistake, being beaten to the mortal world by Odin, and regaining his strength. What should we do? Coulson was a little worried that the meeting between man and God was unprecedented. Don't be nervous. You just need to protect him, don't disturb his experience, and even give some help in your actions. You can treat it as a diplomacy with aliens. Chino said, looking relaxed, as if this wasn't a big deal. Coulson frowned, his eyes full of anxiety and uneasiness. To put it simply, but if something happened to that Thor on Earth, what awaits them is an interstellar war. The consequences are unimaginable, and the Earth may fall into endless disasters. Relax, Nick Fury has experience in this matter, just report it to him. Coulson remembered the alien who disguised himself as a human being many years ago, and his heart was even more heavy. Coulson hurriedly left after getting the information he wanted. Chino flew to the roof of the restaurant, and her suit turned into Venom instantly. The two walked downstairs hand in hand. Gwen had arrived and was chatting happily with Pamela and she, with a smile on her face. Damien sat aside, his expression tangled and confused. Venom sat beside she casually, and picked up a piece of snack on the table and stuffed it into his mouth. Chino picked up Damien and put it on his thigh and asked, what are you thinking about? Damien asked quietly, I should call you Mom, or Aunt. Although I saw it once a few days ago and called out to my aunt, this time I was wearing a gem ring similar to my mother, and now it seems like I am a new mother. The voice of chatting suddenly silenced. Although Damien spoke in a low voice, the few people present were not ordinary people and could hear it clearly. Just Damien just calls me Aunt. Gwen's little face instantly turned red, like a ripe apple, with a hint of shyness and panic in his eyes. Ha ha ha, let's call you Aunt now. When will Aunt Gwen move into the manor, then call you Mother? Chino smiled and joked about Gwen. Who is your aunt? Gwen glanced at Chino, and suddenly thought that Damien was still in his arms, and said quickly. Damien, I'm not talking about you, you'd better call me Aunt. Gwen's expression was a little complicated, and she couldn't help but sigh that she was already at the age of being called an aunt. She is obviously only 19 years old, but she is still at school. Damien nodded obediently and said in a silence, okay, Aunt Gwen. Everyone was amused by Damien's cute appearance and the atmosphere became relaxed. After lunch, the group continued to stroll with great enthusiasm. This time, Gwen was added, and behind him was the agent of SHELD who was responsible for paying the bill. Chino deliberately lags behind half a step and quietly walks at the end with Gwen. Gwen walked silently, pursing his lips, his eyes a little unstable. Chino didn't say anything, and grabbed Gwen's finger directly. Gwen hid for a moment and didn't dodge it, and just let him catch it. A hint of imperceptible blush appeared on his face. Chino played with her fingers, soft and slender, and her fingertips gently stroked her palms, as if she was feeling the delicateness and warmth. Gwen just let him fiddle with it. The blush on his face became even more intense, but he didn't pull his hand back, just lowered his head slightly and dared not look at Chino. Gwen, what? Tell me your physical data. Gwen's face turned red, like a ripe tomato. She tried hard to shake off Chino's hand but couldn't get rid of it. Pervert, you have to know what you are doing. She was both ashamed and annoyed. Although she had agreed to be his girlfriend, she directly asked for her own physical data, which was too much. Idiot, what are you thinking? Of course I am making a war suit for you. Chino said angrily. Battle suit. Well, your clothes are not defensive at all, and they don't have special functions, just like a young man. What Chinkei's clothes, it took me a long time to design it. Gwen twisted his head angrily, pouting slightly. Okay, I'm wrong, there's no defensive suit. So I plan to design a new suit for you. Not to mention anything else, it can at least block bullets. Chino explained patiently, with seriousness and concentration in her eyes. Gwen turned his head, looked at the care in his eyes, blushed and leaned into his ear, and said a few numbers softly. Quote. Chino looked at Gwen in surprise. Gwen was increasingly embarrassed to see, broke free and ran to Pamela. What's wrong? My dear, made you angry? Pamela smiled and touched Gwen's blonde hair, deliberately creating opportunities for the two of them, and ran over in just a while. No. Gwen held Pamela's arm, her ears were red, and she could feel the stunning gaze behind her, so shameful. Madam Venom, can you help me see Damien? She suddenly thought of something and said. Okay. Venom responded readily. Of course Venom was happy, and picked up Damien and rubbed it, muttering, it smells so soft. Mom Venom, be gentle. Damien sighed helplessly, his little face full of helplessness and a little indulgence. She stood quietly and stood still, waiting for Chino to follow her. When Chino walked to her side, she took a step forward. Chino naturally took Zai's little hand and asked, what's wrong, she? Master, I just heard you talking. There is a kind of demon spider in hell. Their spider silk has strong strength and the ability to heal itself. It should be able to meet your requirements. Quote. She raised her head slightly, looked at Chino, and said seriously. This material is really good. Please help me collect some. How did you know? Chino asked curiously. I made a piece of clothing for the young master with hell spider silk, but you usually wear Mrs. Venom, so it's useless. She said softly, with a hint of regret in his tone. Who said it's useless? The company will open in a few days. You can bring me your clothes at that time. Chino pinched Zai's little hand with a gentle smile on her face. Yes, master. A bright smile appeared on Zai's face, and the clothes he worked hard were not in vain. Chino kneaded Zai's fingers, and always felt something was missing. This is for you. She looked at Chino in confusion and took out an ice blue ring and put it on her fingers. At the same time, his spirit was automatically linked to the ring, and he instantly understood its function. Young master, you can't ask for this. She wanted to pick it and return it to Chino. Wear it, don't return it to me. Chino grabbed Exabai's ring's palm, his tone was firm and he could not refuse. Ice Storm Ring, Zero Ring. It can obtain energy from the cold outer space center, emit cold waves, freeze air, reduce the temperature of objects or people, and even get close to absolute zero. Can trap enemies in ice or huge waves of ice and snow. You want to be a servant, I will follow you, but I want to give you a ring, which is also my choice. Although I don't understand what you are afraid of, the ring is my promise and I will protect you until the last moment of my life. Quote. She was silent for a while and pulled Chino's hand. Young master, squat down. Chino squatted down as he was. Before he could react, a petite lips were imprinted on his mouth. The kiss was gentle and short, but full of affection. I love you, master, but I just want to be your servant. Zai's voice was as soft as the spring breeze, her cheeks were flushed, and her eyes were full of love. I love you too, Chino responded, reaching out and hugging she tightly into her arms, as if she wanted to rub her into her life. All passers-by around were shocked by this scene. Although this country claimed to be very free, she still looked underage. Someone had already stopped and was stunned, and then reacted and prepared to call the police. Several strong men walked over angrily, ready to pack up Chino. Why are you in a daze? Run away quickly. Gwen rushed over, pulled she and Chino and ran away. Pamela and Venom hugged Damien and followed closely. Haha, isn't it very interesting, Damien? Sister Venom, stop laughing, you're going to be surrounded. So, the scene of Chino and the beauty with different styles running wildly on the street was seen by everyone without any concealment. Gwen ran hard ahead, holding she and Chino's hand tightly. Pamela and Venom hugged Damien and tried to keep up. Their hair was flying in the wind, with nervousness or excitement on their faces. Passers-by looked at each other, some opened their mouths in surprise, some took out their mobile phones to take pictures, and some pointed and talked in the back. At this moment, they became the most eye-catching existence on the street. In the Demon King's palace, a portal quietly opened. She slowly appeared from inside. She walked in the dim passage, and the faint blue fire jumped on the stone wall, reflecting her petite face. The corners of her mouth rose from time to time, which was a happy smile. Although she really wants to stay by the young master forever, there are many matters to be handled in hell and she can't leave for too long. When I came to her usual office area, an irritable voice came from it. Why do the demons still have to build toilets and let them pull them into the wild? No, she said that all those lands must be built in the future and you cannot urinate and defecate at will. I used to be just a big-headed soldier and couldn't handle civilian work, and why could Hulk not come? Hulk, I don't know the word, why are you here? When will that guy come back? The Loon family doesn't know, it will take 2 or 3 days. My Loon family advises you to focus on Shizune. Maybe she will be the new princess next time she comes back. Just her, how could it be? At this time, the door was pushed open with a creak. The room suddenly became silent. Brown Sky and Bartha bowed their heads silently, pretending to handle matters seriously. Mora put her pair of weapons on the table, and showed a surprised look when she saw She, you'll be back so soon. Well, leave the rest of the work to me. Mora quickly moved out of the position and said like an amnesty, it's great, I'm going to explode when I see these words. Thank you for your hard work during this period. She handled the matter skillfully and said without raising his head. It's not hard to work hard. The Loon family is just annoyed by these words. By the way, what's going on with you? Have you taken down your majesty? Will you call you a princess in the future? Mora came over and asked with a gossip on her face. Brownsky and Barcelona also pricked their ears, and they also knew what she, the Hell chief manager, was going to do this time. The young master is still my young master. A gentle smile appeared on Zai's face. The desk on the other side. Barcelona straightened her waist, raised the corners of her mouth, and her face was full of arrogant expression. I knew, how could your majesty like you as weak as you? There seemed to be a substantial flame burning in his eyes, which was a deep disgust of She. Even after being defeated by Chino, he would not fight She. In his eyes, She was just a guy who won by chance by relying on his Hell's authority and did not deserve any respect. Bronsky, who was standing by, just sat there silently dealing with the documents, as if all the disputes around him had nothing to do with him. After all, the status of the Hell's butler would not change much. And she seemed to have not heard Barcelona's ridicule, and her movements were still orderly and were not affected by Barcelona's words at all. Mora turned her head suddenly, her eyes flashed with a fierce light like a demon, and she glared at Barcelona fiercely, as if she was about to swallow Barcelona alive. Then, she quickly walked behind She, stretched out her arms and hugged She tightly, and her plump breasts rested on Zai's head like a soft pillow. It's okay, She, come back next time. Mora's voice was gentle. If you want to refer to the body of Bulan's family, humans seem to like the Loon family very much. His Majesty also looked at it at the beginning. She rubbed Luo Shi gently, trying to comfort her friends in this way. The two of them have been together since they were as weak as ants struggling in hell. At that time, in order to protect them, she was willing to explore the way for those powerful demons, and was bullied from time to time in exchange for meager protection and pitiful food. And Mora, as a healing demon, always treats Exaby when she is bruised and bruised, causing her to struggle back from the brink of death again and again. Once upon a time, when she was chosen by her ex-demon king to meet the new demon king, Mora did not intend to go, she was afraid of unknown dangers. But she had a glimmer of hope and wanted to take a gamble. On that crowded road, countless powerful demons squeezed them in the middle, but she never gave up, constantly changing her appearance, trying to attract the attention of the new demon king. It was not until the last moment that she was called out by Chino and was lucky enough to get the authority of Hell. After returning to Hell, the first thing she did was to use his powerful authority to suppress all the demons who had bullied her and Mora on the ground, like a goddess of vengeance, whipping those demons hard, venting their past years' resentment. Therefore, she has always felt deeply grateful for Chino who gave it all, which is a feeling as pious as a believer to the god. Zai's feelings for Chino's love are so complicated, like a mess woven in his heart. Love is like a gorgeous flower blooming in the heart, and every petal is full of admiration for Chino, which is the seed planted in the dark hell that Chino illuminates her world like dazzling stars. However, fear is like a shadow, like a cold thorn lingers the flower of love. She was afraid that this love would be as fragile as a bubble, that her love would be insignificant in Chino's eyes, and that she was even more afraid of losing this hard-earned warmth. In this vortex of complex emotions, she was a little confused. So she chose to be a servant, and as long as she was a servant, she would not be discarded. She shook her head softly. Although her voice was light, it was unquestionably firm. Mora, it's my wish to be a servant. Well, Mora sighed helplessly, knowing that Zai's decision would never change. Barcelona snorted disdainfully. Since you're back, I'm leaving, you can do it slowly. He raised his chin at Brown Sky. Boy, come with me and fight with me. A fierce light flashed in his eyes. Brown Sky immediately looked puzzled. Barcelona became his combat teacher, she was the butler of hell, and neither of them could be offended. Mora's face was so angry that her face turned red. She was about to open her mouth to say something, but she spoke. Bronsky, you can leave. Thank you for your hard work these days. Zai's words were like a reassurance, which made Bronsky breathe a sigh of relief. The smug smile on Barcelona's face had not lasted for long before she heard she say coldly, Barcelona, you are responsible for handling the devil's toilet. Why, do you want to use hell authority to suppress me again? Bartha suddenly became furious and showed a ferocious smile on his face. He helped before because he knew what she was going to do, but now she has not succeeded, so he will no longer be obedient. Is this enough? Zai's mouth raised slightly, and he slowly took out a necklace from his clothes. The necklace is very ordinary, but a blue ring hanging on it looks like the brightest pearl in the deep sea. This is the ring. Barcelona's voice was a little dry, and the muscles on his face suddenly froze. The expression seemed to be suddenly frozen, and his eyes were fixed on the ring. Of course he knew what this was. In this hell, His Majesty's women all possess such items that symbolize special identities. This is given to you by your Majesty. A glimmer of surprise flashed in Mora's eyes, and she stretched out her fingers to touch this ring of extraordinary significance. She smiled gently and stuffed the ring back into her clothes. The movement was so gentle that it seemed to treat the most fragile treasure in the world. She protected her with her hands, her eyes full of cherishing, as if only by keeping her close to her can she feel at ease. This ring is more important than life for her. After not touching the ring, Mora didn't care and said excitedly, Isn't this a success? I never said that I failed, and I will always be the servant of the young master. Mora was slightly stunned, and then she understood what she meant. She knew Zai's deep thoughts and stubborn persistence too much. Mora sighed softly, and her eyes showed understanding and care. Oh, I understand you, Barcelona doesn't understand what they mean. But I understand that it is okay to provoke the identity of the Hell Butler, but His Majesty's woman will really die if she provokes her. I silently returned to the desk and took away the toilet planning document. The loneliness and depression in my back were indescribable. The arrogance of the past disappeared without a trace, like a defeated rooster. Brown Sky also quickly left and helped. His pace was hurrying, afraid of causing any trouble. Mora was too lazy to pay attention to them and asked she about her gossip. Tell me what to do. Your Majesty likes you very much. I like it very much, especially I like to hold me. So exciting. On this day, Chino came to a towering building. This magnificent building shines brightly under the sunshine, and the glass curtain wall reflects dazzling light. There is also a demonic sign hanging on it. Demon Group. He walked in with steady steps, and in the spacious and bright hall, there was a blonde beauty at the front desk. After seeing Chino, awe and respect flashed across her face instantly, and she immediately knelt on one knee. See the leader. All of this group are currently from the Assassin League, who are well trained and disciplined, just for Chino's orders to be from. Take me to see Lei Xiaogu. Yes, leader. The front desk responded respectfully, then stood up and led Chino to the elevator. On one side of the elevator, the front desk skillfully opens another set of hidden buttons, and after pressing the button, the elevator slowly descends. The above part is just a disguise for those peripheral employees. The real core is the underground, which is where the headquarters is. The elevator door slowly opened, and Lei Xiaogu had been waiting respectfully for a long time. Master. Lei Xiaogu bowed slightly. How is the company's matter? Chino asked as she stepped out of the elevator. Every facility and factory are already in place and the production of agents and conferences can be started at any time. Lei Xiaogu replied. Well, it's good, go and see how Dr. Banner is preparing. Chino nodded slightly with satisfaction, sighing in his heart that Lei Xiaogu was really reliable and easy to use. The two came to a laboratory, and there were people outside, and they were more or less a little incomplete. Chino didn't bother them and walked to the window on the other side to look over. Inside, Dr. Banner was doing an experiment, and there was a man with disabled legs lying on the lab. "Are you ready to welcome your newborn?" Banner asked with a strange smile. "Yes, doctor." The experiment man nodded nervously. This place was only welcomed by him using his luck to defeat all his comrades. "Don't be afraid, I've already experimented with a guinea pig, just have a sleep." As Banner injected anesthetic, Banner then injected a blue agent. After a while, the drug began to work, and the two grown wounds of the man began to crack and the two babies' small feet walked out. Banner looked at the two freshmen's little feet excitedly and began to paste various instruments on it for testing. The nervous system begins to connect, the bones are growing, and there is no abnormality in the blood vessels. "I succeeded, ha ha ha." Banner screamed with excitement, and the people who saw this outside the window screamed wildly. "Doctor, I feel so painful. My feet are growing." The experimenter suddenly woke up and saw his new feet. Banner frowned. The effect of the agent made the anesthetic useless. Looking at the experimental man who was screaming while staring at his feet, he was a little troubled by the noise. "Search the laboratory bench and pick up a big iron stick." "Bo, doctor, what are you going to do?" The man in the experiment was so scared that his face turned pale and his voice trembled. "Don't you feel pain? Anesthetics are useless to you. You can only have physical anesthesia. Don't worry, you won't die, probably." Banner came to him, waving the iron rod, his expression a little scary. "Wait, doctor, I can bear it." The experiment man widened his eyes in horror and quickly stopped. "Really?" Banner stared at him half-believingly. "Really?" The experiment man nodded repeatedly, and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. "As soon as he hit the stick, my brain was about to fly out." Banner hesitated for a moment and could only put down the stick. At this time, there was still a noise outside. He opened the door angrily and shouted, "Shut up, who is arguing? I'm treating him in the end." There was a sudden silence outside, and everyone was silent, not even daring to show off. After Dr. Banner yelled, he saw an unexpected figure. "Young master, why are you here? Let's see how you're working on the potion, but Banner, how long have you been asleep?" Chino asked with concern as he looked at the dark circles on Banner's face. "Sleep? I only had 2 hours off 38 hours ago. I feel good. Even if I die, I will be resurrected in perfect condition." Banner said indifferently. "Good guy. No wonder I haven't seen each other for a while and have such a bad temper." Chino shook her head helplessly and looked at the incomplete person beside her. "What's going on with them?" "Young master, they are the team members found by Frank. Because they are physically disabled and cannot train, they throw them to me to conduct experiments." Fearing that Chino was disgusted with human experiments, Banner explained another sentence. "They are all voluntary, and my experiments are safe and there is no danger of death." The team members on the side also explained anxiously. "Master, Dr. Banner is right, we all volunteered." "Yes, young master, we are willing to take some risks. We believe in Dr. Banner and the organization will give us new life." Everyone expressed their wishes one after another, and their eagerness seemed to prove that they were ready. Before they came, they knew who they were working for, just a devil. Not to mention just work, they were betrayed their souls. As long as they had a sound body, they would do anything. They had had enough of all this, their wife's betrayal, and the lover who had once vowed to leave after they were incomplete, leaving only a cold back. The sadness of parents, the deep helplessness and pain in their eyes, were like a knife, stinging their hearts again and again. The ridicule of relatives and friends seemed to be still echoing in my ears. The child's dislike, the children who once regarded as treasures, are now full of disgust and fear when they look at them. What's the use of making contributions to this country? Glory and medals appear so pale and powerless in front of the incomplete body, and the suffering of life will not be reduced in the slightest by the achievements of the past. Chino pressed down his palm and the scene suddenly became quiet. A friendly smile appeared on his face. "Don't be nervous, I didn't say I didn't agree with human experiments, I can understand your pain. Believe me, you will be reborn here next, as long as you work hard for me, strength, life, wealth, health, all of them." Quote. Everyone heard Chino's words, and their eyes were filled with hope. "Young master, we will definitely work hard for you and will never let your expectations down." Chino nodded with satisfaction. Although he was not good at PUA's words, he could give better actual results. Okay, you guys leave first. I have something to talk about with Banner. This experiment is very successful, and everyone will recover as before in the future. Yes, Master. These men saluted Chino and were about to leave. You take the one inside away together, let him come here if your feet are grown. Banner called them. After hearing this, a half-faced person immediately burned and a half-armed person walked into the laboratory, mounted the man in the experiment and left. Garcia, Willang, please be gentle, don't break my little feet. Why don't you talk? Because I'm unhappy to beat you with a lottery. No, where are you going to take me? It's not the direction of the dormitory. The experiment man shouted in horror, but the two of them ignored his shouting and took him away. After everyone left, Banner brought Chino and Lei Xiaogu to the laboratory and couldn't wait to show his success. Young Master, over the past few months, I have developed 3 different potions. Banner's eyes flashed with excitement, and he said as he picked up a syringe. The first type is a strengthening agent. In theory, it can enhance the strength by 2 to 3 times through injection. If you go up, you will have a irritable and bloodthirsty side effect. Banner pinched a mouse, skillfully injected a little red potion, and then put it into a high-strength glass box. There was another little white mouse inside staying quietly in the corner, but the size was obviously larger than the newly released one. Chino stared at the changes of the mouse, and saw that it was a little restless at first, running back and forth in the glass box, with its small claws scratching the wall of the box, making a subtle squeak. Then, its body gradually grew bigger, and its originally thin body gradually became stronger. Finally, it calmed down and did not disturb the larger mouse that was originally in the box, and stayed quietly in the corner. Then Dr. Banner pinched a mouse again, injected more potion into its body than before, and then put it into a new glass box. The little mouse had no reaction at first, and after a few seconds, its body began to grow bigger bit by bit. Immediately afterwards, its emotions became irritable, running back and forth in the glass box frantically, hitting the box wall, and even chewing with its sharp teeth, making sharp screams in its mouth, and its eyes were covered with blood. It seems extremely crazy. The power of this teenage mouse has increased by about 4 times. No matter how much the dose is increased, it will be effective unless there is a new drug formula for combinatorial experiments. Banner said regretfully, picking up the electric baton that had been prepared long ago and putting it into the glass box. The crazy little mouse didn't notice the danger was approaching and was still rushing desperately. The moment the electric baton touched the mouse, an electric current flashed. The mouse's body twitched a few times, then stopped moving, and died. I'll look for the formula of the potion, but after these potions are injected, will the new version of the potion be compatible? Chino asked. No problem, I made it with the Lazarus pond as the main material. As long as the main material remains unchanged, there will be no rejection. However, the subject's physical fitness is too strong, so this potion has no effect and can only be used by ordinary people. Quote. When Chino heard Banner's answer, she couldn't help but think of several potions with powerful side effects. I wonder if it would have new effects when combined with the Pond of Lazarus. Lei Xiaogu was shocked. Although he knew that Banner was studying the experiment of the Lazarus Pond, he did not care too much before. After all, he had not studied it for 700 years. Now that I heard that Banner had achieved such results, if he had used this kind of potion, he would have ruled the world long ago. Banner took out the dead mouse in a neat manner and soaked it gently in a cup filled with green potion. This is a resurrection potion, and it cannot be said to be resurrection. If the important organs of the body are damaged too seriously, their heads are lost, or their death lasts too long, they will still die. Banner introduced seriously while operating. The little mouse in the cup twitched slightly, and at first it was just a slight trembling. As time went by, the twitch gradually increased. After several minutes, the little white mouse opened its eyes and woke up, trying to struggle to jump out of the cup. Before it could move, an electric baton reached in, and the powerful current continued to output, and it took a full minute to charge. After waiting for a long time this time, the little mouse still remained motionless and showed no sign of resurrection. After severe brain damage, there is no way to be resurrected, and this resurrection agent can only be used by soaking. Banner's electric baton was placed aside casually. This consumes a lot of money on the Pond of Lazarus. I have seen the pool water in hell, and it can be slowly recovered, but for the resurrection potion, at most hundreds of thousands of people will dry up. Then this kind of medicine is treated as a benefit. If the family members of the core members of the group die unexpectedly, they can apply for use. Each person has 3 chances. Lei Xiaogu, write it down. Chino didn't care much. In his opinion, this potion was already a successful product and there was no need to worry too much. Lei Xiaogu quickly responded, yes, young master, I've recorded it. He quickly took out a small notebook and carefully recorded Chino's instructions, not daring to slacken at all. Banner also smiled in surprise. He was obviously a core member. Who would dare to guarantee that his family would not have any accidents in the future? Thinking of this, the joy in his heart increased a little. Then, he enthusiastically introduced the last potion. The rebirth potion of broken limbs, the work that I am most satisfied with, the effect, young master, you have just read it. After the experiments of the guinea pigs, there are no shortcomings. Banner proudly handed over the proud work in his hand. The rejuvenation agent and the longevity agent are already in the experimental stage, and I will be able to succeed quickly after giving me some time. Chino looked at the blue potion in his hand, and said with admiration in his eyes, Banna, do you have anything you want? No, master, you gave me a normal life, which is what I dream of. Banner said with a smile, his eyes filled with gratitude for Chino. No one can feel the feeling of waking up and appearing in a strange place, and can only hide in an uninhabited place and face endless pursuits. Although he was very busy during this period, this is the life he pursued. Chino thought about it. Although Banner said so, he couldn't really give you nothing. After a long time, who would do anything for you? You can get 20% of the money you sell these potions in the future. In addition, 3 days later, the company officially debuted. Banner, you will release information about the broken limb rebirth potion and healing potion, resurrection potion and enhancement potion internal digestion. Quote. After hearing this, Banner's face first showed an incredible look, and then replaced by a huge joy. Thank you, master. You should know that with the amazing effects of these potions, you can sell them at a sky-high price. And it will be released by him, and the whole world will know him at that time. He is no longer remembered by the Hulk's destructive and uncontrollable identity, but as the outstanding Dr. Banner. He seemed to have seen himself standing in the spotlight, receiving countless praises and admiration, which would be the most glorious moment in his life. So have a good rest during this time and be ready to make your debut in the best posture. However, Banner was completely unaware of Chino's words, immersed himself in his own world, and was still muttering speeches. Seeing this, Chino smiled helplessly and shook her head. I started to visit the laboratory with great interest. In such a huge laboratory, only Dr. Banner is working hard. After the official debut, I have to start recruiting other personnel, otherwise I would be a little uneasy to always squeeze Dr. Banner like this. While looking at the various instruments and equipment in the laboratory, Chino was silently planning the follow-up plan in his mind. Chino suddenly saw a huge jar on a table. He leaned over curiously and saw it look like white lard inside, with a slight luster on the surface. Chino couldn't help but come closer and smell it, with a fresh fragrance. Banner, what is this? Chino asked, turning his head. Banner was called to come back to his senses and said, Master, this is the impurity filtered out from my production of resurrection potion and the broken limb rebirth potion. I originally planned to recycle and see if I could make a kind of injury medicine, but it failed and it was useless except to make the skin whiter and tenderer. Quote. White and tender. Chino looked at his palm and it was very white. Chino looked at Lei Xiaogu's hands. The bronze skin was a little rough, and the effect should be seen. He said, Lei Xiaogu, put your hand in and bubble it. Yes, master. Lei Xiaogu immediately rolled up his sleeves and slowly reached his hands into the jar. Time passed by minute by minute. 10 minutes later, Lei Xiaogu took out his hand and washed it, and his eyes twitched. I saw that the hands were as white as a woman, and even had a faint luster, which was completely different from the rough appearance before. Unexpectedly, there were unexpected gains. Chino asked in surprise, Banna, how is the production of this thing? Many. A small bottle can produce several large cans. Master, do you want to sell this? Banner said, with a little confusion on his face. Yes, maybe this thing will be sold for more money than those potions added up. Although the jar is not big, it can be diluted. It will be soaked in Lei Xiaogu's skin for 10 minutes to have such a significant effect. After being sparse, as long as it has 1/10 or even 1/20, it will be enough. 3 days later, you can introduce this can of cosmetics, banner. What's the name of that young master? It's called Youth. As the news that the demon group was about to hold a press conference spread wildly, all forces also received the news. That devil is going to open a company. What is he going to sell? Is the demon of hell. Ha ha ha. Devil. Ruiwin will investigate. Look at it first, the power of the Demon King is not something we can fight against. Under this seemingly calm appearance, the undercurrents of the world are surging, and all forces are secretly planning, waiting for the unknown variables brought by the press conference. Chino knew nothing about the restlessness caused by the demon group's press conference, and he was devoted to other matters. The next day, the sun shone gently on the door of New York Elementary School. There is a group of beauties gathered here, and the focus is on a little girl. Damien, today is your first day at school, so you have to listen to the class carefully. If you don't understand, go and ask the teacher. Also, this is for you. This is the seed of cannibal flower that I have carefully cultivated. If someone bullies you, throw it at him and eat him. Quote. Pamela said, tucking a bag of small seeds into Damien's pocket, eyes full of concern. The sweet and soft little cutie, you have to come back early, Venom Mom will miss you. Venom hugged Damien tightly, rubbing affectionately and his reluctance was beyond words. Miss Damien, this is for you, the obsidian dagger, it is extremely sharp and can even cut through steel, so you can keep it for yourself. She put the dagger into Damien's small school bag with a serious expression. Frank couldn't help but sweat from his forehead as he listened to these outrageous reminders, and he muttered in his heart, it's just going to school. Is it as to do this? That's right, Frank had nothing special to do today, so he took on the role of a housekeeper again. At this time, the girls had already said goodbye to Damien, and it was finally Chino's turn. Quote. Chino and Damien stared at each other so big that they didn't know what to say for a moment. Anyway, you study hard. If you can't learn, eat well and don't be hungry, do you know? Chino squeezed out this sentence awkwardly. Well, I get it, Godfather. Damien nodded very seriously. Seeing this, Frank nodded and thought to himself, this is just like a normal person's advice. But Chino seemed to be worried. He squatted down, lifted Damien's trouser legs, and left a demonic pattern on her calves. I sealed a demon on it. If I am bullied, I will shout a demon. A flash shield will appear to protect you. Don't use it randomly. Chino reminded Damien. Demon. Those powerful figures appeared in Frank's mind. Although I don't know which one it is, with the young master's personality, his strength is definitely not weak. You are the most outrageous with the young master. Frank couldn't help but complain in his heart, is this kind of summoning method really appropriate to give a child? I am not afraid that the little lady will be ignorant and will just call it out casually. Frank looked at the peaceful elementary school in front of him. It carries the beautiful memories of his childhood, the place where he arranged for Damien to enroll, and his former alma mater. But now, he was full of worry, and a terrible picture appeared in his mind uncontrollably. The school was blown to pieces under the ravage of demons, and the children were screaming in horror in the smoke and dust. Today, we will welcome a new classmate and introduce ourselves, said the teacher on the podium. I'm Damien Wayne. The sound was crisp and a hint of arrogance. The students sitting below also began to whisper. She's so pretty. I saw her getting off a luxury car today and she must be very rich. Damien also observed her future classmates, who in her eyes seemed weak and childish. Seeing that Damien had no intention of speaking, the teacher pointed to a seat by the window and said, Class Damien, you sit there first, we are going to start class. Damien walked to the seat with expressionless face and sat down, listening to the teacher talking on the podium, and there were male classmates next to him who wanted to talk to him, chatting non-stop. She just felt bored, and this knowledge was learned before. Why did my father want me to come to such a place? The life of ordinary people is so boring, so it's better to go to train. Damien thought to herself, her brows frowned slightly, and a trace of confusion and boredom appeared in her eyes. After enduring the get out of class, Damien ignored the classmates around him who wanted to talk to him and walked straight to the bathroom. After washing her hands, a group of tall boys blocked her way. What are you going to do? A boy said arrogantly, why do you ignore me when you talk to you during class? Because I'm in class, Damien replied calmly, feeling that his classmates were not only childish, but also stupid. I don't care. As long as I speak in the future, you must reply to me, otherwise I will ask my brother to beat you up. The boy threatened viciously, and the boys behind him cooperated to clench their fists in an attempt to increase their deterrence. But in Damien's eyes, it looked like a few snow foxes with their teeth and claws. Damien looked at their positions silently and secretly commented in his heart, there are many loopholes. Let's look at their muscles slack. It took them 10 seconds to solve them. But finally, some interesting guy came. Thinking of this, Damien smiled slightly, with a hint of undetectable excitement in her smile. To pass the time, take 30 seconds to knock them down. Just when Damien was about to do it, Nathan, you bullied your classmates again. A sweet shout came, and a wooden stick attacked from behind, accurately hitting several boys, beating them to the heads of their heads. A girl in an orange hoodie holding a broom and dancing to the wind. Are you okay? It's okay, you snatched my prey. Damien said with some dissatisfaction, holding his hands in front of his chest. Snatch your prey, wow. This is so handsome. Hello, my name is Chen Xiaoyu, you can call me Xiaoyu. Xiaoyu threw away the broom in her hand, and a passionate smile appeared on her face. Hello, Damien responded coldly, and after that, he walked towards the classroom without looking back. She had already proposed to her godfather that she had dropped out of school, and there was no need to waste time for those who would not meet in the future. Damien was thinking about how to speak to Chino. Xiaoyu, who was treated indifferently, did not give up. She wanted to make friends with this cool Damien. I just transferred to school half a month ago. I used to study in the East. I'll see you getting off the luxury car today and there's a housekeeper beside you. Is your family very rich? By the way, your last name is Wayne, just like Batman in the comics. What did you just say? Damien suddenly stopped and turned his head to look at Xiaoyu, his eyes full of surprise and doubt. Damien was surprised to hear Batman's name in another world. Bruce Wayne, the Dark Knight in the comics, have you not seen it? Xiaoyu opened her eyes wide and looked at Damien curiously. Xiaoyu thought of something and continued, by the way, this country has banned the sale of comics some time ago. I originally wanted to watch the latest version. This is still Chino's pot. After guessing that the Demon King could gain power from the comics, S.H.I.E.L.D. completely banned DC Comics, so as not to draw any characters that can destroy the world. Even those authors were locked up for tax evasion. Damien said, do you have a comic? I can buy it for it. When Xiaoyu heard this, she laughed. You also like comics, you don't need money. The comics are in my school bag, and we can watch them together during lunch break. Thanks. 3 days later, outside the Demon Group building. The crowds were surging, and media reporters were carrying long spears and short cannons, and people from all sides gathered here with different thoughts. The interior of the building is decorated magnificently with bright lights. As time goes by, the press conference officially begins. Tony and Pepper are here too. Chino also saw Logan, who was stopped by security personnel because he was smoking, and there were other companions next to him, especially a guy in a wheelchair. Professor X sensed Chino's gaze and looked over and nodded. Chino nodded and said in his heart, Venom, if it senses the power to invade my memory, I will kill him as soon as possible. Clear. On the podium, Chino walked towards the speech stage calmly in a black dress. He cleared his throat, glanced at everyone below the audience, and said, Dear guests, welcome to the press conference of the Demon Group. Today, I stand here and proudly show you the latest achievements of our group. This is not only the crystallization of our team's efforts day and night, but also our firm commitment to the future. Chino paused, the audience was quiet, and everyone was looking forward to his next words. Next, our group's RU00260 Department Director, Dr. Banner, will introduce our new products to you. Dr. Banner came to the podium in a neat white coat. He could feel his heart beating violently, so he took a few deep breaths to calm down his nervous mood. He raised his head, looked firmly at everyone below the stage, and slowly spoke up to introduce the healing potion and the rebirth potion of the broken limb. Friends, the first thing I want to introduce to you is the therapeutic agent. This agent can cure various internal and external trauma in a very short time, whether it is common abrasions, fractures, or serious organ damage, and can have significant therapeutic effects. Quote. Dr. Banner picked up a bottle of therapeutic agent and showed it to everyone. It is very easy to use. It only needs to be directly injected into the patient's body and can work quickly. Then he put down the healing potion and picked up another bottle of broken limb rebirth potion. The next one is the rebirth of the broken limb, which is a breakthrough in our research and development. Regardless of the length of time the limb is missing, as long as the wound is properly treated, the complete limb can be regenerated and restored to its original state after using this agent. Quote. The people in the audience began to whisper, and the marvels were heard one after another. At this time, someone in the crowd raised an objection: how to ensure that this is true and there are no side effects. The person speaking was a gray-haired, glasses-wearing old man, who looked solemnly and stared at Dr. Banner, obviously skeptical of his introduction. Of course not, we can do an experiment on site. Banner had expected this situation. A blond man walked up with a dagger in his hand and slashed his arm, blood gushed out. There was a burst of exclamations on the court. Oh my God, this is crazy. Is this true? How can I hurt myself like this? People exclaimed and questioned, and the scene fell into chaos. Tony hurriedly blocked Pepper's eyes. The injured man showed his wound expressionlessly, his flesh and blood were opened, and even bones could be seen. The hideous scene was shocking. After the show, he picked up the healing agent and quickly injected it on his arm, only 1/3 of it. If you want this kind of minor injury, you only need 1/3 of the injection to cure it. Banner explained. Everyone in the audience found it absurd, and their hands were cut halfway through, and their blood was flowing all over the floor. Is this a minor injury? It seems his blood has stopped. A careful person discovered that everyone looked over and the camera also pointed at the wound. The blood did stop and even began to form blood scabs. There were bursts of amazement in the crowd. After 10 minutes, the blood scab was separated by itself, and the injured man calmly washed away the blood on his arm. What is shocking is that there is no trace of injury except for a faint red blood mark on the arm. The originally deep bone visible wound seemed to have never existed, and the smooth skin was intact like a newborn baby. Everyone in the audience was in an uproar in an instant. This is simply a magical medicine. It's so amazing that I can't believe my eyes. If this can be popularized, I don't know how many lives it can save. Amazement and cheers came one after another, and the entire venue was in a boiling state. Tony also became interested. No one likes this kind of life-saving thing. Chino, what do you plan to sell it? Give me 100 bottles. Chino rolled her eyes, picked up the box beside her and threw it over. It's just that much. Do you want to love? Let's get it after using it. Tony opened it and saw 20 bottles of healing potion and broken limb rebirth potion each. Pepper, who was beside him, also saw it and said gratefully, "Thank you, Mr. Chino." "You're welcome, he helped me a lot in hell." Chino responded with a smile. As Tony's equipment gradually becomes in place, the development of hell is a huge pace. On the originally deserted and silent land, machines are now roaring and are in full swing. Various advanced excavation tools, drilling equipment and transport vehicles shuttle and flow, raising rolling smoke and dust. With the concerted efforts of everyone, an oasis miraculously appeared in the center of hell. Tony took out a white jar and asked, "Chino, what is this?" "There is no label." "This is for Pepper." Chino was about to explain its purpose when a strange sound came from the field. "This potion is fake. That guy is a mutant. I know that many mutants have strong healing abilities." What stood up was a middle-aged woman in a suit holding a microphone in her hand. The cameras around them were aimed at her one after another. Professor X and his team's eyes also focused on the middle-aged woman. The reporters around looked at the woman with an idiot-looking look, thinking to herself that she really didn't know whose press conference it was. Even if they think so, you can't say it directly. How much money is given to you by the above? The middle-aged woman looked confident, and of course she knew that the Devil King, the envoy of the invasion of the demon. She carefully investigated that the Demon King only appeared once in public, and there were no casualties in that demon invasion, and the wind was loud and raindrops were small. And with so many people, how could it be possible to kill all the reporters? There is no need to hang out in the human world. Banner explained. About this, we can do a test on the experimental staff and confirm. The middle-aged woman immediately caught his grammatical problem and asked, "That is to say, you can't prove that this person is not a mutant now?" Banner was speechless for a moment. "I would like to ask Dr. Banner if your medicines have been tested in humans." The middle-aged woman was aggressive. "Yes, but they are all." Banner tried to explain. Tony secretly shouted, "Terrible. As soon as you admit it, No matter what the reason is, it will cause public opinion from society towards you. Also, Dr. Banner, I have doubts about whether you are the inventor of these agents. The middle-aged woman continued to attack. The therapeutic agent was invented by others, but the rebirth of the broken limb is indeed me. As soon as these words were said, the cameras of the audience were aimed at Banner, and the reporters in the audience recorded them crazily. Wait, I mean, Banner was a little anxious. He had never expected this situation. He had a fine bead of sweat on his forehead, his face turned a little red, and his hands were unconsciously clenched and loosened. Banner, let me leave it next. Chino stepped onto the stage. Sorry, Master, I messed up the press conference. Banner said in disappointment, lowering his head, his face full of guilt. No, it's just a small emergency. Chino patted Banner on the shoulder and gave him an encouraging look. Don't take it to heart, I'll handle it. Chino turned to face the audience, his eyes calm and sharp. The middle-aged woman couldn't help but feel a little scared, but she still pretended to be calm and said loudly. What? I'm so angry that I'm so embarrassed. Do you want to kill me? The people around him silently stayed away from her. Chino shook his head calmly. No, I'm just here to answer your question. The middle-aged woman smiled proudly. She guessed correctly and did not dare to kill anyone. The first question, you just said that the experimenter is a mutant, so I want to ask, are you a mutant? Chino asked. The middle-aged woman was slightly stunned and said, of course I am not. I also have a certificate of national testing. Tony shook his head and said, this woman is going to be in trouble. The next second, Chino smiled. Then please help me be the subject of this experiment. Before he could react, the middle-aged woman appeared on the stage. The experiment man raised the dagger in his hand and cut several times on the middle-aged woman's limbs and abdomen without hesitation. Ah! The woman's harsh screams rang out, her face twisted by extreme pain, her eyes filled with fear and despair. Everyone in the audience was in an uproar, some covered their mouths in horror, and some turned their heads in unbearable eyes. Pepper pushed Tony's arm away. Tony, it's okay, I always have to get used to this kind of thing. Pepper's face was a little pale, but his eyes were firm. Pepper, Chino injected the remaining therapeutic agent into the middle-aged woman's body. As time goes by, the middle-aged woman's injuries gradually recover. She stood up tremblingly, her eyes full of fear, and her body was still trembling, as if she was sifting her, looking at Chino in fear. She finally understood that the name of Chino Demon King was not false. At this moment, she was full of regret and regretted that she should not have provoked so recklessly. Chino said kindly, thank you for this lady's contribution to the experiment. If you leave later, you will have a small gift for you. Please return to your seat now. Yes, the middle-aged woman's voice was trembling and she dared not disobey at all. Her legs were still weak and her steps were walking towards her seat with a floating footstep. The middle-aged woman returned to her seat, with the smell of urine, blood, and sweat mixed in her body. People around him were far away, some looked at her with pity, shook their heads and sighed, some laughed mockingly and whispered. I'm overestimating my abilities, I'm suffering now. Who told her to provoke the Demon King? After all, it was an opportunity to become famous overnight, and she almost succeeded. The middle-aged woman lowered her head, wishing she could find a crack in the ground, her heart full of regret and fear. After waiting for someone to clean the podium, Chino didn't care about the turmoil in the audience and said, the next question is the second question. We did do human experiments, and the experimenters will appear next. As soon as he finished speaking, a group of deformed and incomplete people walked out of the backstage. Some of their limbs were distorted, some had damaged faces, and their scars were shocking. The audience suddenly became silent, and everyone was shocked by this scene and could not speak. Chino said, they are all heroes of this country, and they are born and die for this country. While performing their mission, they encountered various dangers, lost their healthy bodies, and suffered great pain. But they never complained and never gave up. The agents we developed gave them hope to embrace normal life again. Quote. Chino paused and continued, they volunteered to participate in the experiment, not only for themselves, but also for more people like them to stop suffering the same kind of suffering in the future. This is our original intention of conducting human experiments. Quote. These experimental personnel spoke one after another. Yes, we all voluntarily. If it weren't for this potion, we would have committed suicide. A man who had lost his lower body. My wound hurts every day, and I can only rely on painkillers to survive every day. I am only 25 years old. Another man with burns on his face, his voice was crying. This potion is our only hope. I'm not as serious as theirs. I just want to see my child again. A blind middle-aged man. The reporters in the audience blurred their eyes in tears, but the camera in their hands still recorded all this steadily. Their hearts were deeply touched, and the pen tip was written quickly on the notebook, wanting to convey this touching scene in words to more people. Tony was also a little shocked. His always cynical face was full of solemnity and respect at this moment. Pepper was even more moved to tears. Please like my videos and subscribe for more videos.